Great. Okay, our meeting will come to order. I just want to remind folks that our meeting is recorded by DCTV. The microphones are on, so mind your side conversations. And we will get started just as we, for our main order of business today is to have a public hearing, which will be part of our meeting, to hear presentations on the proposals before us. And then we will vote to go into the hearing, and then when we've heard all the presentations and have asked all the questions and heard from everybody, we'll close the public hearing and continue in our open meeting, taking up, looking at our budget, and then taking up recommendations for the June town meeting warrant. Hi, Susan. So, to begin, we've all received the minutes. So can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept.
That's Mike, yeah. And a second? All right, that was Jim. Any additions, corrections? I have one correction on page 3. In the, we list out the questions we had for the DYA field lighting project. We also had the questions for the town administrator that we had for the cultural center. So those questions about 30B. So if you just would put them in there as well. So when I reached out to Cody, I reached out to him for both those projects. All right. Okay, so with that one correction, do we approve the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope.
I abstain because I wasn't here.
There's one who has a stain on them. That's Christina. Okay. Great. Correspondence, invoices. We have an invoice. Okay, so this is the advertising for the public hearing. So it's an invoice for $340 total, right? Yep. For the two. Okay, very good. So as our tradition, take a look at it, and then Susan's in the hot seat.
That's what happens when you get here late.
Mike got here particularly early and sat in this corner.
Blocked her so she couldn't go sit there.
Tried, just gave her seat back.
Pull this one out.
All right, I make a motion to pay Dartmouth Week $170 for the CPC needs assessment.
I think it's a total of $340 there.
Oh,
There's
sorry,
two-
yes, you're right,
Yep,
$340
Okay.
amended.
all right, second? And any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Christina seconded. Great, thank you. And we'll sign that on the way back, and then we'll entertain a vote to open the public hearing. We saved banana bread for you, John. Maybe your dinner.
He's already voted on to sign this, it's invoice.
Yeah.
Thanks, thanks, Peter. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to go into a public hearing regarding the fire proposal received for the June town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Susan. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, very good, because that would be a problem. Okay. So, just some of the, how our public hearing will work. We will ask sponsors to come up to the podium over here so DCTV can pick up everything and give us a short presentation. We had reviewed the proposals, and for each of the sponsors had submitted a set of questions and sometimes some more information. So I think in the presentations, if you could try to address those questions. We've received written responses from, I think, just about everybody. And then I will recognize anyone present who may want to speak in favor or maybe have a different view of the project or have questions. And then we will go to committee members for any questions. And then we'll move on to the next proposal after that. And just for the record, we've had one application withdrawn. That was the Pascamanset Valley Conservation. The parties weren't all kind of ready to move forward with the proposal, so they contacted us to withdraw. Okay. So DCTV, Peter?
Hi, Peter Chase, Director of Media for DCTV, Town of Dartmouth. We're here today to move on to Phase 2 of our building project. You funded a study with Phase 1. I have Nathan Ginsberg from Brewster Thornton, who their group did the study, and he's here to answer any technical questions. But so we completed the study. They looked at the outside of the building and made some recommendations. The recommendations are to replace the outside of all the shingles and the woodwork. So you can see some of the rot that's around the building. I think you all received this report. And so there's a lot of weather, the shingles haven't been done in many years. So we're looking to replace all the shingles with the red cedar shingles, which I think is the proposed preferred choice. We're looking to change out all the trim and also do a skirt board along the bottom. That's all PVC, which is historically correct in the coloring and in the formation. And oh, by the way, I should mention that we did go in front of the Historical Commission back in December with this entire plan. They were 100% on board with all the recommendations, and that we told them that when we had the final drawings, we'd go back to them for kind of like their final approval before we went out to bid. So we'll follow up with them within the next couple months when we're ready to bid out the project. So the only additions that we're going to be doing to the building are, let me just skip ahead a little bit, is on the side of the buildings right now, there's an entrance on either side. There's no dormers over the doors, so we're going to put historically accurate dormers over it, basically just to shed the water away from the doors and the platforms. So this way, there's ice buildup a lot on the concrete area. So that's going to be a little bit of an addition. And then on the side that we'll call it the south side, which is next to the police station, there's a set of stairs. Right now, it has no railings, so we're going to put some railings there just to have that accessible in case we need to use it and have the safety of railings there. The front stoop, I think what we're going to change is, you can see the front drawing there, we're going to remove the middle banister, so it'll just be the two side banisters. And then we're going to replace all the banisters along the handicap accessible ramp, and we're going to fix and repaint the dormer out front. And then the only other part of the project, I think, is a little bit of grading on the north side. Right now, the grass is right up on top of the building. So we can't take it down too much, but we're gonna kind of grade it away from the building. So hopefully any kind of water runoff comes and it'll run towards the parking lot, not towards the building. Reviewing some of your questions, I think, there's a little misunderstanding that DCTV is a town department in every sense of the way. Your council on aging is, your library is. So as far as, there's no kind of lease on it. We're not a separate nonprofit. We're not a separate entity. We are an enterprise fund. So that really is just how we capture the money that comes in from Comcast. Comcast does have a 10-year license with the town, which was signed 2 years ago. We maxed out by federal law. We're only allowed to get 5% of funding from cable revenues in the town, and we actually maxed that out. So we cannot go to Comcast and ask them for extra money. It's just not feasible. Like the contract is in stone for the next 10 years. So we're still, I think we just started year 2 of that contract. And unfortunately, I'm sure everyone in this building has been dropping cable. Our revenue has been going down. So it's not the money that it used to be. So we're struggling with budgetary problems, and there's going to be some changes coming forward for us in the future too. So we put in 10%. That's what we thought was a good number to put in. We really can't afford anything else. And so with that, I will open it up to questions.
Great, thank you. For folks who are present, any questions or comments that you would like to make regarding this proposal? If so, please come up to the microphone, but don't let that discourage you. No? Okay. From the committee? Yes, Jim?
In your response, you said that if CPC money were not available for this, not to talk about other sources, but the requirement that restoration be done in accordance with historic standards is no longer in effect. And do you have an estimate as to what would be the cost of the project in that eventuality?
I don't, but I will tell you that I don't think the project in its entirety would happen. I think it would be a patchwork, basically. We do what we had to do to patch up the building. We would not, we wouldn't be able to afford to do the whole building. So it's,
Yeah,
so we haven't looked at that. We don't want to look at that. It's a beautiful building. The Historical Commission was thrilled that we were trying to preserve it as a historical building. I mean, you got the old police station right next door to us that they want to preserve as a historical building too. So it's, we don't want to go down any other road, so we don't want to look into it. And we don't want to be forced to look into that.
Were there any scope items that you wish you'd put in here but are not in here?
I don't think so, because I think this will finish up the building. So when we moved in about, I think it was 12, 14 years ago, we redid the roof, we redid all the HVAC, we put new windows in, we did the doors. So we just didn't have the funds at the time to do the exterior. And, all those funds were 100% cable revenue. It wasn't, and that's why we came to CPC for the historical part of it on the outside, to preserve the historical nature of the building on the outside.
Yeah, John?
Just commentary, I've gone on record with you, Peter, and others, that I'm in favor of the project. And when we review it, one of the hard questions I had and critical of the building maintenance, how did we get here? You know, I couldn't believe the pictures. And so one of the questions we asked is, what's your maintenance budget? And I'm surprised that your maintenance budget is $8,000 annually. And I've got to assume, you didn't go into the details, that probably most of that is going towards janitorial maintenance of the building and not repairs to the building over the time. So I hope you look at increasing that annual maintenance budget to address some of these other critical issues that may arise. Certainly not capital improvements, a new boiler or a new roof. But when I see pictures of missing shingles down at the bottom at the sill that have obviously been like that for years and have now have rotted out the sill and at a greater expense to repair that because it was neglected for years, that could have been remedied. And I know you haven't been there, it's not you, all those years, but that could have been remedied very easily with $1,000 repair or $1,500 repair to put some shingles on that to get you by until a major renovation, you know. I hope we don't end up there again, and you look at, make sure you're properly funded for, again, not major capital, but small stuff that may arise outside cleaning the floors and the windows and so forth.
So I will be, totally honest with you. Some of that work was done from the study that was done 14 years ago. They had to remove some shingles and to look at the sill and investigate it. And there was a plan to go forward with a repair 10 years ago, but it got pulled last minute by, previous administration. So ever since I've taken over, this has been one of my big priorities was to finish up the outside of this building. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a lag because there was discussion of a new building going up behind us. And, there was some discussion on whether or not there'd be room for us within that new building to, to do that. And, that project kind of seems like it's completely off the table now. So we want to move forward and just, get our home nice and watertight and standing strong while we can.
Yeah,
And I
and-
can tell you going
Unfortunately,
forward, we're
You're going
there.
down the right path, and I appreciate it, and let's not repeat history. And like I said, I think you need to look at, start increasing that budget so you can be prepared for some of these minor stuff that might come up, that should be addressed, and not go on for years and years. And what a shame a previous administration, whoever that was, neglected it, because the longer you put it off, the more expensive the repairs get.
Exactly.
Because-
That first proposal, I think, was about $150,000 to do the outside of the building.
Yep.
And so now we're $511. So
Yep.
that shows you in the,
But even some, in my opinion, having a bit of construction knowledge, some real cheap repairs could have gone a long way to prevent some of the things that happened over the years. But I'm in favor of the project. I think it's a worthwhile building to save.
Great. Can you just say a little bit more about, so you have $50,000 that, from the enterprise fund that you can put forward towards this project, and you want to do that upfront. Can you just say a little bit about?
so our plan was to, Brewster Thornton's finishing up the bid documents. That was part of the original contract. To go through the bidding process with them, we'd have to sign a new agreement with Brewster Thornton. So we put in for $50,000 through our reserve fund, retained earnings fund, sorry, DCTV retained earnings. So that's going to be on the June town meeting warrant, I assume. I just met with CIP this morning. They haven't made their official recommendations, but everything seemed like that they were ready to approve that. So going for June's town meeting, you'll see that on this, under the CIP, that there'll be a $50,000 request. Our hope is on July 1st to sign a agreement with Brewster Thornton to continue having them on as the party to bring us through it, the whole construction process. And at that point, we would send it out to bid because we'd have access to the $50,000 on July 1st
So
of that.
first part of the funds
Right.
would be your,
Right,
whatever
and-
your architecture, engineering,
Right.
permitting kind of
Exactly. And so we're fully invested in spending our $50,000 first upfront completely. So even when we sign a contract and we stop paying the vendor, if this all gets approved and passed, we'll extend that 50,000 out completely. And then whatever we don't use at the end, we are carrying a very healthy contingency, we think. I think Brewster Thornton wanted to put in 10%. We asked to put in another 10% on top of it. We also put in for full replacement of the sheathing behind the shingles because we know that there's going to be a lot of rot behind there, and we didn't want to get into a situation where we took off the shingles and then only budgeted for 20 or 30% of the sheathing replacement. So that's in all the estimates now. So hopefully we'll be able to turn some money back. And so any kind of savings that we have would 100% go back to the CPC once we close out the project.
Oh, great, thank you. Any other questions? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there folks here who can speak to the Duval field? There we go, great.
There's a couple seats up here, too.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to introduce myself, but I do have some packets that I want to give out as part of my presentation. But my name is Natasha Swaby. I'm a land conservation specialist with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, and I'm here represented with Brendan Annette. He's the vice president of our watershed protection. I just want to give these to you before I begin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the coalition has submitted this application in partnership with the Dartmouth Conservation Commission, where BBC will require and permanently protect 2.5 acres to establish a public park and protect critical natural resources off Tannery Lane, which is along the Slocum River's estuary. So this park serves as a unique location at the head of tide for the Slocum River estuary to be available to the public as a waterfront park. It improves the water quality in the Slocum River estuary and the Buzzards Bay by limiting septic system and runoff pollution at this specific location, and it contributes to the growing Greenway corridor along the river. It protects fish and wildlife along the river, and the river is notable for a variety of particular species for turnbirds and migratory fish. It also serves as a migration of marsh and coastal habitat long-term. It maintains the scenic character of the Russell's Mills Village, and it also works to foster public engagement through outdoor art that connects the community to the location's ecological and cultural significance. So the Buzzards Bay Coalition currently has a purchase and sales agreement to acquire this accessible and very ecologically important property for open space conservation. We're currently pursuing private fundraising and other sources to cover a portion of the costs. And BBC and the Dartmouth Concom are co-applicants, and we respectfully request $575,000 in community preservation funds to be used by the Conservation Commission to acquire a permanent conservation restriction on the property. So as you can see, there's a breakdown where BBC is acquiring the property for $725,000, and we also have an additional $55,000 in due diligence costs. The appraised value for the CR is $630,000. And we're asking for $575,000. So as seen on the packet, BBC is actively working towards funding a portion of this project, and CPC remains a critical component at this time to help fund the project. It's a great opportunity for the town to support a unique and accessible waterfront opportunity to the public. It's in the historical district, and it serves as a community connector with Duval's General Store just barely 100 feet away. It's in the Russell Mills Historic District Commission, so it's going to require a review before we could remove the house, which is what we're proposing. We've already initiated the process for this review, and it's moving forward with submitting an application. We don't expect there to be any issue upon this review, as the house was built in the 1970s and doesn't meet the criteria for historical value. And we're expecting to keep the existing small shed that's on site, and there's a garage there as well to store stewardship equipment like mowers. As shown on the map, the access to the property will remain the same. There's currently a driveway there, but we plan to expand by adding 6 parking spots, which will be available to the public. And in addition to that, we plan to add picnic tables, create a short trail through the, we're envisioning a grassy open space with a short trail with waterfront views and access. And eventually, the Massachusetts Design, Art, and Technology Group, DATMA, will bring an outdoor art that fosters community connection and a deep understanding of the ecological and cultural significance of the location. Attached in the last image of your packet, there was a previous conservation group that did artwork similar, and that's kind of the brainstorm behind what DATMA's currently configuring. As I mentioned, the property will be maintained where BBC will have site equipment stored in the shed and garage. And like our other fee-owned land across the Buzzards Bay watershed, we'll have routine land management where we'll mow the grassy area around once a year and maintain the short trail and other pathway systems routinely with consistent access. And this is done with our professional land management staff, and they continuously manage all our landscapes full-time. And with that, I'll open up for any questions.
Great, thank you. First, from folks in attendance, anyone have questions or like to speak to this project at all? Yes, if you could come up to the mic and introduce yourself.
My name is Sue Gaducci. I'm with the Dartmouth Historical Commission. I realize that this doesn't meet the standard for historic preservation, but just to give you a little bit of background, this house was constructed by Raymond Duvall in the 70s, and anyone that remembers Raymond, he was a master carpenter and a contractor, and this house is not being demolished because it's in disrepair. It's just being demolished. Now, I'm a little surprised. I mean, as much as I am in favor of the protection of this type of a property, why this structure cannot be repurposed in some way, because that type of this type of demolition, it's just not sustainable. So whether or not the coalition decides to utilize it for interns or convert it into a gallery, you spoke about artwork, which it would be much better than taking a perfectly decent building and putting it in a dumpster.
Would you like to respond, or someone like to respond from the sponsor? Well, you have to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sue. That's certainly an appropriate comment. Our first intention would be to try to relocate the building. So that would be the first effort. So which, like you said, repurpose. That depends on the logistics of being able to do that. One of the problems with the location of the building now is actually included in some maps that we provided with our application, is the storm surge threat and the eventual sea level rise threat at the location. So the long-term sustainability of this particular location for sustaining a residence isn't practical because of the threat to the rising water. So that's part of the benefit of actually having this site, preserving the historic scenic nature of the site, but understanding that, hey, if this sold again on the private market, it would likely be a larger house, which would then get defended in a way that sort of has impacts to the river and the adaptation of the riverbank and the coastal habitats along the river, and potentially would be a threat to the structure. So our intention is to actually at least look into, is it possible that we could actually find a home for this building by moving it? That would be the first intention. But we've decided that removing the septic system has benefits at this location, and the long-term sustainability of a house at this location is challenging.
Just for our record, and you are?
My name is Brendan Annette, as Natasha introduced at the beginning. I am the Vice President of Watershed Protection at Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Margaret?
I have a couple of questions. First of all, I'm looking at a deed from 3/13/25 that was for Massachusetts Design, Art, and Technology, okay? And I'm looking at a purchase and sales agreement for the 2002-4 in December with Bernie Gifford. So who actually owns this property?
DATMA owns the property. So BBC entered a PNS with the previous owner when it was on the open market, and entered an agreement with DATMA to pre-acquire the property to give us the opportunity to try for this opportunity. And so we have an MOU with them to basically buy it for the same amount that they purchased it for. So we preserved that opportunity to try to fund for this conservation outcome. If that didn't happen, they would have to sell it on the open
So
market.
the purchase and sales that we all have for 2024, Bernie Gifford is not the personal representative.
He's not the current owner. The current owner is
Right,
DATMA.
so this
DATMA.
purchase and sales agreement is kind of null and void.
Right, well, right, but we attached, I believe we attached the MOU
Did you
that
attach
basically
that?
extends this opportunity until next September. The purpose was simply as a pre-acquisition, as a placeholder in the middle, to give the time for the ability to raise funds to try to do this, while competing on a market when other buyers are just looking to buy immediately. Yeah,
Okay, and I have another question.
Sure.
Please. I ended up calling Michael Wachowski, who is the chairperson of the Russell's Mills Commission, Historic Commission. And I said to him, have they gone before you? And he said, no. I did speak to someone, and I did give them papers, but they never returned the papers. So I think that the Russell's Mills Historic Commission would have the final say on whether you can knock down that house or not.
oh, they do, and as Natasha acknowledged, we need to go through their review. They do, and
I
so
understand.
that's true. So that's being submitted this week. What has to happen before it actually gets submitted is for the abutter notifications to go out, and that has to be coordinated with another office in Town Hall. So that's actually what's happening now.
So, and I'm ignorant of the fact, I'm going to ask Chairperson. So if we were to approve this and they didn't get it, okay, I mean, how do we approve something when,
Well, that was one of our questions, actually, is if you weren't not able to remove the property, of the building from the property,
Yep.
what's the impact? What will you do?
That would be determined before we acquire the property in September. And if we couldn't take the building down, I don't think we wouldn't move forward.
Okay, well, that's an important piece of information, okay,
very important.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, there was a lot of emails. Did we actually get answers to the questions that you posed?
Not in writing, other than what was just handed out at our meeting, and then what has been verbally kind of addressed our questions, no. So if you couldn't remove the structure,
Yeah, for historical purposes, you're saying?
or for, well,
Yeah.
let's say, it sounds like that might be the one thing that you might not get approval to tear it down, I guess, or.
I think, as Natasha said, we believe it's unlikely. I'm not saying that there's
Sure.
not value to the structure. Yeah.
But
It's
if,
not consistent with why Russell Mills is designated as a historic district. That's what she was saying.
got
Yeah.
it, got it, and that's probabilities, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But just in terms of if the building couldn't be removed from the property, then you don't think you would go forward with the project at all?
It would require another alternative such as a proposed use of the building, and that's not currently
Right.
apparent to us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That would be
right,
partnering
yeah.
with another
Okay.
organization,
Yep.
such as the examples that Susan suggested.
Okay, great, I just wanted to.
So I don't think it's
understand-
impossible, but it's not in the context of how we're currently proposing it, because that involves another option, and the risk to the residential structure is actually part of the context of basically the threat from the
Right.
being adjacent to the coastal location where hurricane could take it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And you've already started the process for getting in front of the Historical Commission.
So it has not been submitted, as has been
Not been
said. So
submitted,
we've
okay.
started the process with the abutter notifications, and we have the papers, and they're completed and ready to be
Well, I
submitted.
consider
Yeah.
that part of a process, so.
That's
you're-
exactly
you're on your
what
way.
Natasha said, that we've started the process. I'm just
Yeah,
clarifying
yeah.
based on the comment that was made.
Yeah. yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and
Okay,
Well,
so,
I try to
that's-
do my
that's-
homework.
it's totally fair.
So
I would have
fair.
done it too.
I know you
so
would.
very likely that question will be answered before town meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, John?
You talked about park-like setting and maybe some trails. Across the street, the town owns the pond, the dam, and the waterfall, and that's an attractive site for residents, and they park over there and use that facility. Is there gonna be attempt to create a trail so people can safely go from one piece to the other?
Well, the road is in the way, so safely
Oh,
is dependent on
right,
coordinating with the town.
but
But
is there
I've
gonna
done
be-
it, and I think there are some ways that we can facilitate improving that. Yeah,
That part of the plan?
that's part of the plan.
Get a trail over to that,
it's-
'cause you know people are gonna be
That's part of
doing
the
some-
plan, is that making it a publicly accessible space is that we're developing it in a way that's accessible from, as best as possible from
Right,
the
because it's
from the
not
village.
accessible from the landing,
Yeah.
but it is accessible from the
Right,
site across the
right,
street.
Yeah, yeah. When we have been taking supporters to the site, that's where we go. We show them the pond, the fish ladder, take them across. I agree with you. That's how we'd like to see it. And when I say trails, the idea is that we would maintain as like a natural high grassland at the site. So trails mean that the grassland gets mowed once annually to keep the woodies down, right? But that the trail is that we actually have a mowed wide walking path so people can walk tick-free through the property down to the water and see. So you can look over the tall grass, but actually walk through the site and enjoy it, yeah. And then the area around the parking area, sort of at the north end of the site, there would actually be some regularly mowed lawn, right, where we could have benches and picnic areas that's more open and you're not walking through tall grass. Yeah.
And it looks like from the aerial, I've never traversed the property, but it looks like from the aerial, there's a stone wall along the river.
Yeah, it's a nice
Is that
stone wall.
along the entire river frontage or
It is,
just a
yeah.
portion of it?
Yeah, it is.
So is fishing gonna be allowed?
Yes, yeah.
From the bank of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as permitted by state law, right?
Right, no,
Remember,
no,
those
that-
river herrings still can't be
understood.
collected since 2006 or whatever.
It's not gonna be
yeah.
discouraged.
Not at all. You actually,
people at the
no, no.
landing
The idea is
fish.
for this to have the water connection, right? It's real, obviously, at low tide, there's the sound of water, and the riffle at high tide, it sort of floods in, it floods in. But it's unique character of the village, and it's something to show off and for people in the community to experience, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, Mike?
I don't have the proposal in front of me, so I'm going from memory here, but Margaret made me think of it. So who will be I know you're gonna own the restriction, but who owns the land? Who will
No,
own
Buzzards Bay Coalition will own the land.
We'll own the land,
The
too.
town will own the
Okay, I
restriction.
had it backwards,
Yep,
all right.
yep.
All right, so you'll own
So
the
that's-
land.
yep.
So then you'll
And we'll maintain the land.
maintain the land and
Correct,
and
yep.
insure, and obviously have insurance, all that sort of
Absolutely,
stuff.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Will the town be an additional insured on that policy?
Doesn't need to be, because it's not an owner. You don't actually own, you don't have liability for the property. You basically have the right to prevent the development, or changes to the land use that would impact the character of the property, right? So there's not a liability connection to the town. But like the town and DNRT, BBC, when it opens these properties to the public, there actually are statutory protections by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for opening properties like this, so.
Okay.
Yeah. In addition to that, both of our organizations also carry insurance.
Okay.
Other questions? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having us.
you.
Yeah.
If folks here could speak to the Crapo Field lighting. Will you just introduce yourself so that you can be permanently recorded?
I can do that. All right. My name's Adam Malpas. I am a lifelong resident of town and the current president of the DYAA. I want to thank Mr. Chairperson and the other members of the board for having us here tonight to present what we believe is a very important project for the town. The DYA has been serving Dartmouth families for over 50 years, currently provides recreational opportunities to the town's youth. Annually, we service between 500 and 600 youth baseball players every single year between our spring and fall seasons, and then another 400 plus in basketball, which is where I just came from. Sorry for being a little late. Crapo Field is a very important recreational facility in our town. Maybe none more important. It's been maintained and operated by the DYAA for greater than 50 years. We have a long-standing lease partnership with the town and have serviced and maintained that property for generations of our families and children to use. Our current challenge, which is why we're here today, the lighting infrastructure at Crapo Field existed before I played there, which was a long time ago. Some fields is 30, 35 years, others are around 50, believe it or not. It's aging, it's starting to fail. Finding replacement parts and people to fix them is a real challenge for us. They're failing more frequently. Finding someone with a bucket truck large enough to get out there and service them in the tight spaces that we have in some of the areas at the complex is a real challenge. We've been fortunate enough to leverage some relationships with Eversource in the last couple of years where they've come out and helped us with bucket trucks, but that's just not sustainable. There's only so many times you can ask for a favor. So what we've proposed is full replacement. There's currently 5 lit fields there, so there's 7 fields on the property. 5 of them are lit. The 2 that are unlit are when you first drive on the property on the left-hand side, they service our littlest kids' t-ball. They don't need to be lit. Those kids aren't playing night games. They're too young. But this would allow us to replace every fixture on the property. There's 112 of them, and bring it back to life and make it so that we don't have disruptions to the services that we provide to the kids. The project, the DYAA, I think I sent answers to all the questions. I don't know if you have them. Do you have them?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at it, we're looking at it as a partnership between us at the DYA, the town as the landowner. C2S is our general contractor. They're actually here tonight with us. Kyle Cabral, who's actually also a board member of the DYA, and Marco Costa, who's their engineer, has worked on the project for us. Mark Cabral Electric would be the chosen electrical contractor to work under C2S. And in addition to that, we've developed a relationship over the last 8 or 9 months with Graydon Bedford Voltech. They just completed some work for us at the facility recently. We upgraded all of the lighting in our concession stand and meeting hall to LED fixtures. We replaced all the heating systems, added blown-in insulation, and these guys made that possible for us at 0 cost. They were able to get rebates on the materials. Whatever materials we couldn't get rebates on, they actually donated. And then the students at Voltech, under the supervision of their administrators and teachers, came out and did the work on site. They are very interested in continuing that relationship and have offered their assistance if we are able to secure the funds to come out and work side by side with our electrical contractor under their supervision, which will help us save, that's probably gonna help us save about $30,000 just in labor. if we're fortunate enough to have the project funded, our aim is to start the work in September, which is just after our spring and summer season, and wrap up sometime in October, which would still allow us to have probably an abbreviated fall baseball season, but it would be the least amount of disruption possible for the organization and for the leagues that we operate. The funding this funding is very important. Likely without it, the project does not move forward, just being frank. We operate basically hand to mouth. You know, we can only get so much out of the families in town. It's already expensive enough for their children to participate in recreational sports and activities. We budget to maintain the facility and maintain the existing infrastructure that we have there. But at the moment, you know, I mean, I have, if you guys want to look, I did put together, that was the one item I didn't send you. It was a little draft baseball budget, just so you can see how we operate.
Thank you.
So as you can see, I mean, our spring, summer baseball season and the associated costs, we project an operating surplus about $2,300 to take on a project of this magnitude, where we're requesting $230,000 to be able to complete it. As an organization, I wish we could fund it ourselves, I truly do, but we can't. I know there was a question about, had we looked elsewhere before we came here? Yes, we had. The first thing we did was we tried to go to the utility and take advantage of the rebate programs. We were really hopeful that that was going to be approved, even if it was approved partially. They came back and told us we just didn't have enough runtime. Basically, you know, leave the lights on for a year and then come back and maybe they'll do it, but that just seems pretty wasteful, in my opinion. So in closing, I mean, Crapo Field is an extremely important part of Dartmouth's recreational community. We have hundreds of children and families that come through. We host, with Mr. Vieira has been, you know, he's the face of the organization for probably 50 years. He was there before me. He may even be there after me, because once my kid's out of there, I'm out of there. But you know, we run a tournament every August and bring people in from out of town. And I just started experiencing the tournament travel last year with my own son. And you go to some of these facilities and you look and you scratch your head, and they're rough. Everybody comes to Crapo Field, and this is no word of a lie. We probably have half the field every single year approach us and tell us how proud we should be of that facility, the way it's run, the way it's maintained. And I think that's great for us as a town to be able to kind of, we're a bright shining star in that aspect of things. We just need to put a little polish on it. It's just the way it is. You know, we're not going to increase any field usage, but they will be, right now, I mean, in the fall, we had games canceled because we had lights that weren't operable until we were able to get emergency management, thankfully, through some connections there to bring us a portable light stanchion and get those kids lighting on the field so that they could finish the season. But those are the types of things that we're running up against. So I respectfully ask for your support, and I'm sincerely thankful for the opportunity to ask for your support. And I'll open it up to all of you for any questions that you may have.
Very good, thank you. For folks who are present, anyone who have questions or like to speak with regards to this proposal? This is one difference between us and the zoning board of appeals. Just noting, but it's great, I'm really glad you all are here. So for the committee, questions?
I guess I'll just clarify something you said. So on the rebates, you're saying that the reason why they don't qualify the rebates is because the lights you don't have the lights on enough during the year to make it worth the utilities investment back into the equipment. Is that
That's
sort of
correct,
what
right, Marco?
it is?
Yeah, if you guys want me to.
You have to come up here and introduce yourself.
Thanks, everyone. My name's Marco Costa. I'm an engineer with C2S Energy. I've helped out Adam at a few of his locations, specifically at DYAA. So I've worked with Eversource and local utilities for the better part of about 12 years on the energy efficiency side. And what the utilities tend to do is they do a benefit-cost ratio where they determine whether or not the money they are funding a project with is justifiable by the energy savings of that project. So the first question I had to Eversource when we were looking at this project was, are there runtime, limitations because this field isn't necessarily used with a high intensity? Preliminary estimates went through, I sent to Eversource, and it was determined at that time that the runtime hours are not significant enough. Now, that, and I don't want to speak, I'm going to speak candidly. What happens is Eversource gets a lot of willy-nilly projects all the time. And an engineer doesn't want to spend his time and resources on something that might not come to fruition. I do think that if I press Eversource enough and say, hey, look, the town is coming to the table with a viable project and they're potentially showing a means to fund this project, I really think you guys should step up to the plate. I do think that there is a good chance that that happens. However, my preliminary question to them was met with, it doesn't meet the runtime hours, so we're not going to look at it. That was basically how it was handled. I explained that to Adam and everyone. I said, hey, look, I've been fighting with Eversource here, and they're kind of just shooing me away. Maybe if something is a little bit more set in stone, I can go back to the table and vouch for the town to try to get some funding secured for this project. I don't think, they don't typically want to dismiss, especially municipalities. They want to help municipalities, but they just want to make sure that they're not wasting time and effort on something that's never going to happen.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
Sure,
Thanks very
absolutely.
much.
Other questions? Yes, Jim?
I mean, there are 112 fixtures.
Yes.
Count them. I've never been very close to athletic field lighting situations, but I've witnessed these from afar. And what I recollect was that the high-level approach to the lighting of a field 50 years ago is very different than it is today. And because of the changes in technology of lighting. Has this project been looked at by somebody whose specialty is athletic field lighting?
It has.
Huh?
It has.
And,
We had a shading study completed.
I'm sorry?
We had a shading study completed with the existing poles that are on location, and it was determined that for us to be able to get adequate field coverage and light coverage on the fields, we needed to replace fixture for fixture.
Yeah. And the question is, would a lesser number of fixtures in different locations do the job? I mean, in other words, is the design appropriate for today's athletic field lighting technology?
That's probably a question for you.
No, I know. I mean, yeah. Not the electrical engineering question of will it work, but is it the right way to light a field?
Yeah, correct. So obviously, My goal is to save energy, and I do that through either a reduction in wattage or a reduction in quantity of fixtures. Those are the two easiest ways that you reduce the electrical consumption with sports lighting, sports field lighting. So that was the first question I went to when I was sourcing a replacement LED fixture to the lighting reps who are very well versed with lighting fixture. I said, look, here's the quantity of fixtures I have. I need to know, one, can I reduce the fixture count? Two, I want to know what the minimum wattage is because I want to try to save as much money. This was before Eversource shut me down, of course. So I need to show the biggest delta in existing fixture wattage versus proposed fixture wattage. It came back, because he came back with a 600-watt LED equivalent versus a 1,000-watt metal halide, which is on site right now. I said, hey, can we go lower than 600 watts? Maybe a 400 watt. Can we do it in 400 watts? His response to me was, the performance, we will not meet the foot candles at the playing surface if we go another 200 watts lower. We're going to see a degradation in actual light. But what we do benefit is over a 40% reduction in electrical consumption. So as I was looking at the design, the goal, primary goal, is you don't change the lighting quality on the field, because the last thing I want is Adam to say, what the hell did you do here? Excuse my French. So that's the way the replacement was scoped. How do I reduce the fixtures, if possible, and how do I reduce the wattage as much as possible? Thank you. Sure.
You mentioned that your lease expired about a year and a half ago.
Correct,
Any-
October 2024.
Yes. But you've been in place for 50, any issues or anything
no-
being
no.
negotiated?
No issues at all.
That would explain this gap, or?
No issues at all. We're just simply awaiting an RFP from the town to be able to respond to that and extend our lease.
Okay.
But we've continued to maintain and operate the property under the terms
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
lease, and we'll continue to do so until we get a new one in place. But the goal is to have that done, I hope, in the near term.
Yeah, that would probably, I would imagine, be one of the conditions.
Yeah,
On
absolutely.
the release of funds.
Yep, absolutely. I think we could probably, well, I don't want to speak for anyone here, but maybe get it done before September. We'll see.
No pressure.
No pressure.
And, one of the things I think we had mentioned to you, and I think this is true with the Dartmouth Cultural Center project, we'd asked Cody Haddad, the town administrator, just to confirm kind of what, these being public funds,
Yes.
just confirming kind of what are the requirements
Mhm.
that you would have to follow in using the public funds. And so
Procurement,
there's
yeah.
confirmation that the 30B procurement would apply.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to put the project out to bid. And prevailing wages. And I think you've mentioned that the prevailing wages are in this
Correct.
cost estimate. But the one question I have, you've described the roles of the folks participating in the project, and you can't get to where you've gotten without some professional input from contractors but it isn't going to be guaranteed that these are the people you're working with, right? Because you have to go through this public bidding process. So I just want to make sure you're kind of
Yeah,
aware that if you accept these funds, if town meeting would approve it,
Yeah.
you're going to do an open bid process for something in this kind of dollar
Yeah.
amount.
yeah.
Okay.
I would be hopeful
Yep.
that, I would,
Right,
you know,
well,
my gut is
hopefully, yeah,
that
they
they
would
will be very
apply, yeah.
competitive. We did get two prices, to be frank. One of them
Yeah.
came through an organization that had a relationship to somebody working in town hall. Their price was significantly higher. It was
Yeah.
about 393,000 as opposed to 221. So, so it just, I think these guys will be competitive in that bidding process, but I understand that we will have to put it to bid.
Yes. And the public bidding process is kind of an onerous thing. So I don't know if you all, the DYAA has had to manage a public bid process. I guess one of the things would be to, if the town can be some of assistance in that regard, just so that the i's are dotted and the t's crossed.
Yeah.
I'm just aware that it's an onerous process.
Yeah.
And hard, it's.
Well, I will welcome
there are
any and all
All kinds
help.
of expertise in this building.
Yeah,
For how those processes
absolutely.
work, but hopefully, you'll get some assistance in that regard with at least how to manage that piece.
I will
of
say
it.
they've been fantastic partners thus far, so I would hope that we could continue that. Been very responsive, more responsive than I could have ever thought they would be, so.
Any other questions? Yeah, John?
Just expand on Jim a little bit, a little knowledge on lighting. I worked for the utility. I was a bit surprised when I saw the wattages of the fixture, 1,000-watt metal halide, which is old technology, as you know, and since then they've come out with high-pressure sodium and now LEDs, and huge change with LEDs on the energy savings that you're very aware of. I was surprised that the lighting fixture only went from 1,000 watts to 600 watts, and watts is the energy consumed. Lumens and foot candles is what you're seeing on the ground. Typically, you had an engineer look at this, and I'm assuming you're familiar with the IESA standards, the Lighting Illuminating Society of America. So they come up with standards for a task, whatever that task is, whether it be a desk in an office or a playing field, you're supposed to have so many foot candles. Did they produce any documentation to show what you have today for foot candles and a lighting plan of the proposed work? Because that's typically I've seen that a lot with the engineering firms. They'll give you a plan saying, if you're replacing this fixture at this height with that fixture, this is the foot candles you're gonna get. And it changes as you move around the field, but it determines whether you meet the standard or not. Have you seen any of that? And are we exceeding the standard? Are we below the standard? We at the standard?
So,
You should come up to the podium just so that DCTV can capture what you.
Because it seems as though we've got to be above the standard. When I look at the wattages being used, I'm just surprised that it's only a 400-watt savings.
yeah. So, again, excuse me, 1,000-watt metal halide on day one will have its designed foot candles, given the distance off the ground, right? So how high it is on a pole. The degradation on that is pretty significant as time goes by on a metal halide. They just increasingly become less and less efficient at producing light for every hour that they're in operation. So what we do is the comparable LED fixture matches day one on that 1,000-watt metal halide fixture. And the cut sheet for the proposed fixtures will show the throw pattern and also the foot candles given a specific height. It's listed, forgive me for not knowing off the top of my head, but it is on the cut sheet that we have provided with the proposal for review. So we could get design or spec'd foot candles given the specific height. So, but to answer your question, I don't have a physical drawing. Now, again, I want to just make this known to the board, right, that we're doing our work that we've done so far, because I have done a significant amount of work on this, is solely based on the fact that the owner of C2S has such a vested interest in the town to do this work. So everything has had a consciousness about it that we get to where we need to be without spending weeks and weeks and weeks of design work. So I don't have a CAD drawing that shows design LED footprint on the entire field.
You
or
don't
all
know
of
if
the
your
fields.
engineer, what was his explanation of, you don't know the standard he met or not met or exceeded, because my knowledge of lighting, and I've,
Yep.
I've been to GE plant down in South Carolina for a week for lighting school, so, it's been years, but I have a little bit of knowledge, is that typically on a retrofit. And I've retrofitted from metal halide to high-pressure sodium, high-pressure to, not a lot of LED work. That was beyond my, after my career. But anyway, typically on a retrofit, fixtures are reduced. Same pole, same task, parking lot, ball field, fixtures were reduced. Under this circumstance, I was surprised to see that the number of fixtures weren't reduced, that it's the same amount of fixtures and only a 400-watt difference. But I'm not gonna hold up the project for that. I was just curious of what is he seeing on the ground there, I know.
Yeah, so
You're definitely gonna see improvement, because like you mentioned, they do degrade over time. There's no question you're gonna see a big improvement. But my question is, are we exceeding the standard by, because I don't think you get the degradation in LEDs that you saw in metal halide and high-pressure sodium in past technologies.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, the big sell on LED, which is why if we looked up, we'd see LEDs everywhere here, is primarily because of the energy used to get the same light output, right? This is why Eversource pushes it, this is why all these utilities push it. So again, the goal was to maintain the same light output on the field that we see on day one for a metal halide that we would with an LED retrofit. And I didn't want to go, and I asked for a second opinion because I can be wrong. Can we reduce the fixture count? And I was met with, no, I don't think it's a good idea. I think what's the end result is probably going to be not as favorable as you think.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, so I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, no, so,
that.
yeah, again, and this isn't something that I overlooked when I was doing this, because ultimately, it's got to be the most affordable project, right? And it has to meet energy savings criteria. That's the way I sell a project. It's got to have a return on investment, the whole 9 yards. So step one, reduce the quantity of fixtures if possible. Step two, reduce the wattage so that the energy consumption to the town is reduced, well, to the DYAA is reduced in this case. So when I'm looking at an energy project, those are my two main focuses. And if I was able to do that here with a level of certainty that the end result wouldn't be diminished, we certainly would have proposed less fixtures. That's why we see the same fixture per fixture count in the proposition. So I'm happy to revisit it with our lighting reps who specialize in field lighting and sports lighting. You know, again, however, his initial suggestion was that we maintain the same quantity of fixture, but we have that, you know.
It's not gonna change the outcome of this hearing, but it's probably a good question to ask, to get that
Sure.
plan for amendments, so what did you base it on, what we had there now, and what's the new foot candles, and what is the IES standards?
So again, foot candles, the replacement fixture was based on 1,000-watt metal halide, what it produces for foot candles at, say, a 34 or 40-foot pole.
No, but I understand that the IES standards, though, dictate what's
For a
needed.
sports field.
So, just because there was metal halide before, you could have exceeded the standard, or you could be way under the standard.
Potentially.
And that's what an engineer would be able to tell you, and hopefully he's looking at that standard, that he's not overselling you on, you've got twice the foot candles than you really need for that task. Or, on the same token, underselling, saying,
Sure.
yeah, the standards say this, and we're only getting this,
Yeah.
It's a question worth asking.
Understood.
Because if there's an opportunity for savings that you can reduce some lighting, there's money coming back to the town.
Mike?
Real quick layman question on that, though. If you did reduce the fixtures, wouldn't you have to relocate the location of the poles to spread that light out differently? So isn't that really an extra cost? Because now you're re-engineering the layout of the fixture, or the poles, I'm assuming. I don't know that, if that's true or not, and then you're rerouting electricity and wires and everything else. Doesn't that add cost, actually?
Potentially, yeah. So obviously, if we reduce the number of fixtures, because the nature of an LED is a very directional light fixture, whereas a metal halide has a really wide throw per fixture, we potentially would have shading concerns. And, we'd have to go there at night and aim every single light fixture and make sure we don't have shading on the field.
The short answer to Mike's question is no, just
No, you
because you're
wouldn't. Oh,
reducing
okay.
it. Because
I
the
didn't know.
technology on fixtures, there were different fixtures that do different
Yeah.
tasks, and they could keep the same pole, the same height.
Correct,
Because
but-
that's an added expense you don't want to go through, and they look at
Right.
that.
But the
Okay,
throw-
this fixture may not work, you
Yeah.
know, if we reduce the number of fixtures, but we can change it out to this fixture and it will work. You know, so there are different aspects they can look at versus adding
We've
that
gone
kind of
from-
cost.
So we've had it.
Well,
We've
we've learned
gone,
a lot.
we're going from expert to lay.
I'm not an expert, I have a little bit of knowledge, I wouldn't call
It's all
myself.
relative, from expert to lay to novice question on the same subject. But partly, I think I want to ask this because it wouldn't surprise me if that is the kind of question that might come up at town meeting if we got that far with this. And so I have the experience of kind of having a flashlight with with D battery flashlight in my face versus an LED, right? The LED is a lot brighter. So that's, I'm coming from that. So I think one of the questions we had is shifting to the LED. Is this going to be a brighter field? Are there things that we need to think about in terms of abutters? If there's going to be a real change in the lighting? And the answer in here about lumens was that maybe even the lumens will be lower. It sounds like maybe even less bright, right? If I'm understanding that. So could you kind of,
Yeah,
the
so
concern is if it's a really well-lit, you know,
the
field.
the beauty of the LED fixture is its ability to direct the light to the playing surface. So although the lumens might be lower, on the field it'll appear brighter because of the efficiency of the throw of the actual photons that are being emitted from the LED, right? So the playing surface has that LED shine right on it, whereas a metal halide, there's a lot of light spillage that impacts abutters, whereas an LED fixture is very directional in its light throw. So to answer your question, it typically helps abutters because it won't appear bright up in the air. It's going to appear bright down on the playing surface.
All right, great. That might be a question you'll hear at a town meeting kind of a thing. Okay, great. Any other questions? We probably should move on. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Fair to say, I feel enlightened.
Yeah.
I have learned something. Okay. Next up, the Dartmouth Cultural Center. We have folks who can speak to that proposal.
I got complaints that we didn't share with the audience last time. Jeff, pass some candy around.
Good evening, I'm Pauline Santos, president of the Dartmouth Cultural Center. We have been waiting for a long time. I think people sometimes think that we're never going to get started, and that bothers me because I've been at this since 2017. So we are very, very close to getting the ramp getting in and the bathroom. Those are the two main objectives that we need right away as much as we can. When we lock the door, most of our board and a lot of our volunteers are my age, and when we lock the door, we have to pull the door and lock it, and there's no landing, so we're stepping on a step. It's really very difficult. Anyways, Catherine will answer your questions, and I'll come back up if you have a question for me. I can stay, okay.
So it just means that all the other volunteers are 30 years old, like Pauline here, and looking forward to a vibrant life as they age gracefully. So Catherine Duff, I'm with Studio to Sustain. We're the architects on the project, and we're here before you this evening looking for additional funding because as the project has gone through a couple of delays, lots of delays. The town lease change of leadership in the town at a couple of different levels. Then the lease lapsed, then to get the lease back on board took a while, and then we're told they had to go out for a whole new RFP process to get the lease. But all that's in the rearview mirror. They've got a good 30-year lease. We're looking forward to getting under construction. We've just recently retained an attorney to help us through the public bid process to understand exactly what pieces of the regulations we have to abide by. We know it looks preliminarily, we absolutely have to do a prevailing wage, but not all of the obligations of the 149. So, but they have a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an architect. But I will say we haven't stopped our work, and we've continued to explore the building. We followed up on your request to do some exploration of all of the materials to make sure we're going to abate everything. We don't want to miss something in the process of rehabilitating this building. We have a historic consultant, Post Oak. They have filed a PNF. It's been accepted by the Massachusetts Historic Commission. So we're really in good shape to really do right by this building, to abide by the Secretary of Interior standards. It is a rehabilitation. And we actually identified some material that was missed on the first pass at discovering some of the toxic materials in the building. And that is all of the glazing on the windows is hot, as they say, and the layer of tile underneath the current layer. There's a couple layers of tile that have been put in that building. Not the mastic, thankfully, so the glue was fine, but the tile has some assumed asbestos material in it, and that will have to be disposed of properly when we go to refinish the floors. The wood floors are under there, and it looks as though we can get the mastic up just fine. So the goal is to restore them. Again, rehabilitating the building to the Secretary of Interior standards. So it really is a historic rehabilitation. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions, so, or Pauline, really. The young'un right here to my left.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone from those present have questions or like to speak to this proposal? Or I turn it over, okay, to the committee. Any questions?
Just Buddy.
Yes.
So where we were, I don't have, when we first reviewed this project, I think we were all shocked with what you originally asked for years ago and where we are today. What were those two figures? What was the original award? And now that just time's elapsed, what's the increase you're looking for in funding on the overall project? I know it was shocking.
The first award we received was $8,000 that we had to match. There was an article in the Standard Times, and a week later, someone sent us a check for $8,000. Then,
I'm
that was
sorry,
mass.
It wasn't the award, it was the estimate of the project
Oh,
that you had put together.
Okay, then I'm answering the wrong
Back
question.
then, and the estimate today was shocking. Can you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Apologies,
have
I
those-
don't have that in front of me, but I will say, construction cost of, as I don't need to tell anybody in this room what you don't already know, is that the cost of construction has escalated exponentially. 67%, if you really want to know the actual figure, since 2019. So that, on top of the scope of the project, just expanded. Initially, we were retained just to look at getting handicap access and getting handicap utility, handicap access toilets in the facility. And as Dartmouth Cultural Center has used the building and begun to really expand their programming, frankly, we've been able to observe other improvements that need to be made to the building, both to enhance the programming, expand the programming, and to maintain and preserve, rehabilitate the building. Bring it up to code in some instances, but honestly, add some energy efficiency. Very complicated to do when you're doing a historic rehabilitation, but not impossible. And we expanded our scope, frankly. And the building continues to deteriorate. I mean, I've been before this, thank you for your patience, and it's a pleasure to be here again this evening. But every year you go without making these improvements, the improvements don't go away. They just kind of increase. And they get a little bit more expensive.
So
But we will go out to public bid. I mean, it will be a competitive bid, so.
so you've got the most expertise than anybody in the room on.
Every gray hair, every cost I see come before me every day.
Current projected costs and construction costs. I think, I'm a proponent of the project, but, again, I don't have the figures off the top of my head. I remember they were shocking at some at town meeting.
It's around
we find it a tough
360.
pill to swallow that,
$320.
$320,000 difference. Tough pill to swallow. Are you confident that your projections are pretty accurate today on that if town meeting were to award the project, that you could do it for that cost?
I'm confident I can do the work we listed under that scope. Not included in that is definitely not the specialty gallery lighting.
No, but
Yeah.
given the current environment with construction costs, are you confident that we're not gonna see you back in a
Yeah,
year from now saying, hey, we underestimated the
We
project?
added a buffer. We added a contingency in there. We did, no question about it. I mean, I've got PTSD, seriously, reviewing quotes daily. I just came from a public hearing on a public housing project, and, we're looking at $780 a square foot. Never in my life did I think I would be seeing those kinds of numbers. It's tough to get in front of them. We do our best, but historic rehabilitation is a little bit of a niche, and we've tried to do some pre-VEing on some of these costs. Like when we got the news about the windows, we actually went out to bid and we looked at the assessment. What's the cost to preserve that window, to abate it, and to put a airtight allied storm panel on there, which meets the Secretary of Interior standards, and versus a replacement window, and it turns out it was about $1,500 an opening cheaper to actually abate the window, to paint it and put that allied panel on there. I probably wouldn't have guessed it would have been that much of a savings, but that clearly said, okay, we're gonna keep the windows. We're gonna really restore those windows, fix them, abate them, and put the storm panel on the exterior, So we've done a little bit of that work, but these costs are crazy. The prevailing way to get a mason on a project, to repoint it, it's crazy money. And we'll get it tight, because we'll bid it competitively, but I'm as frustrated as all of you are. I'm just like, don't kill the messenger.
No, I don't want to be back here a year later, you folks back here later, after, if we get town meeting over the initial shock of the changes since the last time we were there, that we have to go back again.
Yeah.
That's just,
No, I appreciate that. I really do. And I will say that I've spent a lot of time with the Dartmouth Cultural Center. I've attended a lot of their events, actually. I mean, they do a lot, not just like fine
great group of
arts.
volunteers over there.
They do like poetry readings, they do they do interactive dance in there. And what I've realized, and we've done a little bit of redesigning of that office where the handicap bathroom's going and the sink, to let that programming be able to expand and make it way more efficient. So we actually expanded the design scope a bit in that front area, and that's just gonna make their organization run a little bit better. And we're able to get them the proper storage that they need, because they've got stuff hanging out in the space, and we're able to design, it's like on a boat, you design a storage to fit one specific type of, for instance, their exhibit panels that they use. And then the space opens up for more flexibility. And so there's been a lot of design work behind the scenes that's sort of addressed a bunch of those needs, and that just expanded the scope. And that's why we increased the budget. And they're going right back to Mass Cultural Facilities, a big supporter of this project, for all of those reasons.
And we also are looking for other grants, other monies that we can use to do some of the things that won't be included. Tom, our grant person, is out there all the time looking for money, so. And with the 30-year lease, we should be able to get some better funding.
Yeah, and they have an attorney now, because the trick is, a lot of the funders, the grantors, will not give money to the town of Dartmouth. They give money to the organization, the owner of the project, which is the Dartmouth Cultural Facility. And they fund a capital contract, they fund a capital project. So the way those grants work is you go through a public bid process, you engage a contract with the most qualified low bid, and then when you sign that contract, you enter into, usually it's an AIA contract, professional contract. When those requests for payments come in and they get certified by the owner's rep, that's me, the architect, they go to the grantor. And then that grantor releases those funds to the owner of the project. And so when you have the other owner in this mix of things, it gets tricky legally on how that grantor gives the money. They won't give it to the town, they give it to the owner of the project, but now you have this other owner that owns the building, that you have the 30-year lease. So it's complicated, I'm not a lawyer, but I work on projects with these levels of complexities, and now they've retained a good lawyer with a lot of experience understanding those contracts in preparation for getting ready to get under construction, so.
It seems like, one of the big outstanding questions that's kind of lingering out there is around what kind of bidding procedures you're gonna need to follow. And I know that was kind of the rationale for holding, getting a 30-year lease, thinking that will change some of the conditions for bidding. And now you have an attorney who hasn't quite answered that, whether you had to, I understand you changed attorneys.
Yes.
But the previous attorney hadn't quite answered that.
No, we didn't hear anything,
Yeah.
no fault or anything, but, yeah, we had to
fault,
make a
I'm
change.
No, but so it's still, that question's been out there for a while.
It has, way too long.
Yeah.
So once we get an answer,
And how will you get an answer? That's what I'm wondering, like.
we need a letter from the state saying that either we have to go with the state procurement or we don't. So once we know that, then,
Yeah, the attorney, he's reviewing, he's pretty experienced with the construction laws and gonna itemize it for us in a letter to Dartmouth Cultural Center, and then he'll meet with the town of Dartmouth.
Is it the town or the state or, I'm just trying to figure out how you all will get to that answer, because it sounds like, one, it'll certainly affect timing, depending on what procedure you have to, and then might also affect costs. So I'm just figuring, do you have to be on the same page with the town, or you go to the state, and then the town and the cultural center will
we'll do
what the
whatever,
state-
the lawyer finds out and tells us, that's what we'll do. We want to get started.
Oh, yeah, I definitely know that, but I'm just trying to figure out how this important question gets settled and stuff, and I know that you have to be on the same page with the town, since the town's still the owner and needs to make sure.
Absolutely.
But, so your attorney will produce an answer or get an
Yes.
answer from someone, or?
Yes. And as soon as we know that,
And their attorney's going to talk with the town of.
Right.
of
Yeah,
Dartmouth.
yeah.
yeah,
It's gonna, just for clarity, the project has to be publicly bid. Like, we will go out with that 2-week notice
Yeah.
in local newspapers, and we will solicit competitive bids. The only thing outstanding is what pieces of the 149, which can get very complicated with municipalities, it's different than just public bid projects, have to be followed. And that we will go out for public bid, and we will also advertise for prevailing wage. So
Yeah.
ideally, you get a local contractor, and the local contractor pays his crew prevailing wage. I mean, that's in the perfect world. But it's gonna be some sort of I anticipate it'd be some sort of, our experience is some sort of a hybrid, pieces of the chapter 149 and the prevailing wage in the public bid process. And we hope to get that resolved in the coming month.
Well, that was my other question. You think that'll get resolved before town meeting, which is in June?
oh, I hope so, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
because that's probably something we would want to kind of know where you landed. and
Exactly.
What that, what that means for the project. But certainly it would be good to know that before town meeting, so we have just more confidence about what you're able to do going forward
Right.
and stuff.
As soon as we hear, we'll let you know.
Yes, we're pushing. Lawyers don't always return your phone calls.
When they do, it's expensive, so then you're kind of like,
I don't need to tell any of you
want them to
anything you
call me
don't
back,
already know.
'cause now it costs $400.
But we're
Yeah.
pushing very hard, and we were hoping to have had that resolved before this evening, but so
Except that he's on vacation.
that's how hard we're pushing. So we're pushing as hard as we possibly can without blowing the budget of the Dartmouth Cultural Center. Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned is that the complexity of the bidding process may be beyond what your capacity is, understandably.
If that happens, we will have to spend money and hire someone to help.
Yeah.
We can't, I'm a fourth grade teacher.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
no,
know
understandable,
anything.
right.
We have to get
Yeah.
people who can, work with us and go through it.
Yeah, yeah, that would be my recommendation. I mean, as the owner's rep, I've got to focus on the construction and making certain everything's abided. Also, the historic rehabilitation, it aligns with the PNF filed with the state. And then the approving all of the pay recs. But the Dartmouth Cultural Center, managing a public bid can be a little tricky. And they need some good.
We do have
representation.
someone who is willing to be our project manager, but it's not written in stone yet, so, I don't want to say.
They've been
right.
they've been putting their feelers out for some capital project managers that are retired but helping out other organizations in town. So, and they've come to a meeting and they've indicated that they're willing to help. So they've been doing their research and trying to get somebody to assist with that. So regardless of how the chips fall, they're getting ready to be able to manage that end of it. So there's a bit of work behind the scenes happening. And the good news is they keep raising money. They're very good at raising money. So that hasn't slowed down at all. And they continue to get asked to solicit for grants. When the MCC reaches out to you and says, send us in another request, you know that they're in support of the work that you're doing in the project. So, that's the success story with the organization.
Other questions? Yes. Susan?
Just to clarify, so if the information you get back says that you have to follow the most stringent and you have to hire somebody, what's a contingency plan for paying for that? And then if you're doing a lot of fundraising, I see that you have, an MCC grant was initially part of the match for this, but I think one of the questions we had was, is the cultural council able to put some into this as well? Like any matching funds? So those are two separate questions.
Okay, we have two accounts. We have our operational account, and we have a separate account that has been built up by donations. Some of the banks have been giving us like $5,000 a year, that kind of thing. So we do have some funds that we can use. It's strictly for the construction. It's not for operation.
And yes, there's another grant that's being filed for, again, another matching grant with Mass Cultural Facilities. And they have delayed the release of they've given continuances on the first grant. So they're in support of the project.
So that, some of that money is still there. I think you
yes.
All
spent some of
that,
that.
most of that money is still there.
Yeah, the trick really is the construction contract and how they release those funds to the owner of the project.
Why I do.
Kind of above my pay grade. It's illegal.
Me too.
It's illegal wrangling, yeah. But other organizations are gonna face it as well, going after large capital funds, because that's, those funds get released to the owner of the project, not to the town.
Any other questions? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, please. If you
Oh, you
come
have
up
to
here
come up
and
here.
then introduce yourself. You have to come up to the mic. You still have to come to the
She
mic.
wants your name.
Thank you.
Mary Lou Frias, Board Member, Dartmouth Cultural Center. So I know the project well.
Yeah.
It's 3 phases, correct? And the first phase is what you paid for initially, $260,000 along with the MCC grant. Regardless of what happens, phase 1 goes forward. Doesn't matter whether we have to go out to bid with state bidding or not, we're moving forward. That phase will be done. The next phases are less definitive of how they will be funded. We are hopeful and we continue to raise money. We get a lot of community support. The question about attorneys, our attorney is just a busy attorney. And though he is in the State House in Boston checking for us about the state bidding, he's now running for district attorney. So that's the
Yeah.
reason we have, it was no distress.
Oh, yeah, no,
It's why we
that-
have a new attorney.
understandable,
Who
yeah.
starts tomorrow. And Dan Perry, who's the attorney, represented the Aiken House
Mm-hmm.
in a similar nonprofit needing money and not wanting to do a bid process, a critical bid process, but not state bid process. And he was able to get that okay, that the Aiken House did not do state procurement, though they did do fair wage. So those are the pieces I know. But one way or another, we're going forward with the first part. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Any-
that's- All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our final project is the Agricultural Preservation Fund. Susan's going to recuse herself.
Peace out. Feel free to pass the pen, Dave.
Thank you.
See if I can get you set up here, buddy. Hang on a second.
Good.
Everybody have a chance to receive the response to your letter?
I believe so.
Yes.
I was firing stuff off to everybody,
Yeah.
so that's okay. We appreciate it. Great, maybe just start by introducing yourself and,
We're just going to need DCTV to hook us up to the projector here.
oh, okay.
I can get started away.
Why don't you hold on a second while we get this set up, that way you don't miss anything that is. Buy a ticket, stay for the show.
I didn't realize that right there.
Yeah, no.
I never had so much paperwork that I got. It's unbelievable. This is my life.
Went to sleep on us, yeah, right.
Crazy.
Oof, that's a relief.
I forgot my,
Something wrong.
I'm trying to look it up on my phone.
There she goes. All right, thank you.
I got everything.
I'll let you have the floor here. And
Put it on my,
then you just want to hit the space bar to go to the next slide.
Get it.
because I needed.
So my name is Derek Christensen. I'm Chair of the Agricultural Commission here in Dartmouth. I also have a vegetable farm, Bricks Bounty Farm. We're on Bakerville Road. We farm on APR land, which is Ag Preservation Restricted Land, at the King Farm property. So I'm just going to give a very brief pitch. Hopefully, everybody has had time to review our submission. Thank you for doing that. The reality is, we're in a spot where we need growth on a statewide level. That's awareness. Housing has to come down the pike. I'm not going to say that we don't want to have development take place. The question is always, where does that development take place? And we're aware that land prices in Dartmouth are very high, so the costs to preserve farmland or conservation land is oftentimes different than what it would be in the Pioneer Valley or someplace like that. Over the years, Dartmouth has really benefited from a number of resources through federal resources. The Ag Preservation Trust comes through, directed through a state program. And it was really about 30 years ago that the town came together and put together a bond for the first Agricultural Preservation Trust Fund. That money is gone. It's been spent over the course of those 3 decades. And where we're at now is we're trying to establish a new fund that will allow us to act quickly, have capacity from the agricultural community to have a seat at the table with other conservation groups, to make sure that the properties that we see on the horizon have an opportunity to be preserved. So we're asking for, whoops, I went backwards, but there we go. $3.75 million over 4 years. This is not for a specific project right now. We have, as an ag conservation group, along with nonprofits, identified properties that we're aware might be coming up down the pike. So we've gone through all the legal aspects of this. This is, allowable, so on and so forth. And what we're aware is, in the next 5 to 10 years, there could be some of the last properties that are still vibrant farms that haven't been protected yet in town come up. Some of those properties are in 61A, some of those properties are not in 61A. And we would like to develop a fund that has the capacity when those properties come up that we can kind of act. And where this conversation started is partially with the Westview Estates on Tucker Road, if you're familiar with that property. And I'm not going to throw everybody under the bus, but I had a conversation with a conservation group when that property was up for sale, and I think it was listed initially at $4 million. And I said, well, this is a property that's got potential for runoff going down to the Pascomansit. It's active agricultural land. And they're just like, yeah, they said 2 things. They said, A, we've just hit up our donor base for another conservation project in town, and the price tag's too high. We're not going to move on it. Over time, that property, the transfer of that property was not a $4 million transfer. It was actually less than that. But we didn't have any place to say, hey, let's make a pitch. And so what we're trying to do with the establishment of this fund is when these next properties come on board, there's 2 things that are happening. Number 1 is we already have a capacity to say, hey, we have funds, not necessarily going to be paying for all those properties necessarily with this amount of money, but we have funds that we can lever the private donations and the state dollars to help preserve that farmland. Anecdotally, one of the realities is there's always competing agendas, and the conservation groups historically, like the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, is focusing on preserving water resources. And when we address them and talk with them and say about let's preserve farmland, the farmland's almost like it's keeping an active farm is a good benefit, but it's not their intent. And what we have the capacity as an ag commission is to say we want farming to be part of the conversation. We don't want to just create idle properties down the road, that are fields that are mowed once a year to walk through. We want to keep land in active agricultural production. So the pitch is really, it's not for me. I have the benefit of farming on land that's already preserved. It's for the future generations that we don't know who those farmers are going to be, to create the opportunities for them to continue on and create make sure that the culture of agriculture remains relevant in Dartmouth. Do you want to? Yep.
Thank you. Oops. Nick Wildman, the Executive Director of the Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust. I am not on the Ag Commission. DNRT is supportive of this proposal, as you know from the packet that you received. And DNRT was a chartered member of the trust fund that was instilled at the end of the late 90s and did tremendous work in this community. This is a wonderful place to live, in part because of the work that the Ag Commission with its partners under that Ag Preservation Trust did. Copacut Farms up near the Copacut Reservoir, Eva's Garden on Jordan Road, the old Martha property there at the end of Horseneck. A number of these properties would not have been protected without that trust fund that's now expended. This request puts the keys back in the hands of the people that know these lands the best, to be advised by a group, including DNRT and other experts here in town on various boards and committees. Now, there are very prominent people in this town that'll tell you, we don't need this fund. They'll say, just look at that article in Dartmouth Week. The Mary Legs Farm, they got that wonderful federal NRCS money, that USDA money. That money pays half of what that family should have gotten for that property. Now, that's wonderful. I'm so proud. That's wonderful that they could do that. Now, I happen to know that there are two other farms recently that couldn't take half of what their land was worth for that conservation restriction, but a little sprinkling on top made that deal go forward. That's wonderful. Do you want to do you want to roll those dice that the next farm, that George's farm, that the Vincent farm, that Kingfisher farm is going to be able to take half of what their family deserves for that land and keep it in agriculture and keep our... Every day I drive to work and I see more of those signs, stop over development in Dartmouth. All week, every day I go to work, I see a new one. This is the kind of thing that puts the keys in the hands of the people who know how to drive the car. It reinvests in the future of this town and honors that commitment that was made in 1998 when that first trust fund was set up. And I'm very happy to be part of that. I know this is a large ask. I trust that this committee understands its fiscal responsibilities, understands its income and its balance of priorities, and we've seen some excellent proposals tonight, and you're going to see excellent proposals next year and this fall. So I think in my discussions with the AgCom, everyone recognizes that this is not the run-of-the-mill ask, and I hope that the AgCom has done well to answer the questions that you all have had.
Anything further? Great, questions? Folks present have questions or like to speak about this project? Don't hesitate.
I think everybody's pretty much heard.
You have to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sue Caducci,
Yeah.
Agricultural Commission. Everyone has pretty much heard what I've had to say over the course of many years. The one thing that I try to focus on is that these are working landscapes. So it's not open space that requires staff time on the part of the land trust. These are all properties that are placed in the hands, and capable hands, of qualified farmers. And I just want to reiterate that Copacut Farms is probably our largest success to date. They've grown exponentially because of the opportunity that they had in purchasing that farm. And they've been given tremendous latitude in growing their business because of the quality of work that they've done there. So that was a definite win-win for the town and for them. And this will give us the ability to, hopefully, to replicate that same type of farming operation.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Sure. All right.
Fred Dabney, member of the Dartmouth Agricultural Commission. I've been a farmer in Dartmouth, since back 1970, and ran a nursery for many years. And it's amazing when I see what's the changes that are going on in Dartmouth since that 1970 era, where Dartmouth, we raised that $3.75 million as part of the Agricultural Preservation Trust through town meeting with hardly a beat, because the town recognized how important agriculture was to the whole area in the town, to the way people felt about why they wanted to live in Dartmouth. And we're at a crossroads now where that chance is disappearing very quickly. And if we don't do something to ensure that we do have some agricultural land that is operational in town, it's going to make an enormous difference in the overall appeal and appearance and the way people feel about this town. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, please.
I'll go real quick.
Absolutely.
My name's Jeff Kinder. I am a farmer here in Dartmouth for the past, 15, 18 years. I'm a member of the Ag Commission as well. I just was here listening to all the other proposals. There's cultural center, there's youth athletic association, proposal for a park, all these things that are of benefit to the town of Dartmouth, the character, what we want to see as a community. And agriculture feels different from those things. I think it's been categorized as potentially as a business over the years, and sort of a private undertaking. But what I see in agriculture is, as it changes now, it is becoming a really interactive thing where commodity farming is less and less common in spaces like this. So the presence of the working landscape, like Sue said, in a community like this, I think the value of that presence is continually being redefined, and for the Ag Commission to be able to sort of help to identify that value and give value to that by leveraging funds like Derek said, I think brings a spirit to the soul of Dartmouth that I think I hear people want to continue to see. And I think it brings a lot of value. So.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Turn this, committee, questions? Yeah, Mike.
So I appreciate all those comments, and actually, Sue and Jeff, you just touched on something I was thinking about, but I still don't have a clear picture because I'm totally a novice in this world. So the difference, like Sue, you mentioned, it's not open space, it's active agricultural farming and the benefit of that, right? So what I'm trying to figure out is how it works, like how it plays out. So, like if it's open space, you buy the conservation restriction, it stays as open space. If you buy the development rights on the land and you preserve it as agricultural land, how does it become agricultural land? Who gets to farm it? How do you decide who the farmer is? And who's involved in that process? And, because where you're putting public money into something, to your point, I think you just mentioned, Jeff, that's thought of as a private enterprise. So how does that work? I don't know. If someone could just explain that process to me, I think that would help me to clarify it in my head.
It's definitely on a case-by-case basis, and, inherently with that, there's a lot of different agricultural enterprises in town, and some are really successful and some kind of flounder and go through it. But what this would be is, sometimes like with DNRT properties, they might potentially own the land and then allow it through a lease agreement for farmers, put out a bid. There's other scenarios where a land group will come in and hold a conservation or an ag restriction, and it'll be a private sale and transfer to the next generation, whether it's in their bloodline or not in their bloodline, for somebody to take that on. But it's not a one-size-fits-all. It really depends, and a lot of that comes down to conversations about sometimes the directives from the previous landowner or the current landowner, what they'd like to see happen with that property, and then also who the partners are. DNRT's done a tremendous job. I'd say since I moved to town in 2008, they've really come up to speed with understanding like the role of stewarding agricultural land in addition to just conservation land. So Nick could talk more about how they go through that process, but typically it's a bid process. They're asking for business proposals, and the land group that's kind of might be stewarding those would come back and say, here's the most competitive. If you look at some of the past ones like Copacut that Sue mentioned, that was a public RFP for, and they were selected. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to that, there's no necessity for DNRT to be involved in a given land transaction. The concern we've heard for the past few years especially is that the town departments don't have the capacity, the person power to oversee their conservation restrictions and to check on the land that the town owns. And so that responsibility has increasingly been pushed off to others. So there may be a role for DNRT in those cases as well. In other cases, that conservation restriction could be co-held by a conservation group and the town, where the conservation group has the responsibility for oversight and whatnot without burdening those town resources. But again, you know, just as with the Ag Trust Fund, there will be projects, if this is funded, that have nothing to do with DNRT. Or maybe we just simply bring funding and then that purchases an agricultural protection restriction that kind of the state enforces and lives with the property, as Derek was saying. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in this, and it can look a few different ways, but the key is to have those funds available in the power of the Ag Commission with the input from the folks who will be asked to sign the memorandum of agreement that was submitted in draft form to you all, so that there's some consensus and some good information sharing from the different departments.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yes,
I'm gonna
please.
I'll take your question in a second, but listening to what Nick said, I think another thing that I didn't understand as well as I do now is the role of farmers, or like Sue in that sense. Like, there's a brokerage where there's certain properties where farmers, you know, they don't really want to deal with the DNRT or the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, because for whatever reason, they just have a negative association with some of those nonprofits. And so the other thing that's sort of unspoken here is in the same way that we might do mediation between, you know, if farm animals have issues in neighborhoods, there's opportunities with some of the property owners where if the Ag Commission or folks from the community aren't in that conversation, probably the conversations don't take place. So, you had a question?
I just have a question, and I don't know who's better to answer it, but I know Sue keeps her thumb on what's happening. I'm surprised to see a number of APR farms now on the market, and I'm surprised to see the prices. Is that something that it is? I mean, I keep my eye.
It's a perfectly good question, and
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
Let's go back 6 or 7 years. The APR farms did not demand that kind of price. So I'm really surprised to see it. But also, I'm noticing that they're still several of them are still on the market for that kind of money. Because you can't really, you have to, and it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I like that. But that's a lot of money for something that, you know, I love it because they give you a disclosure and they say, it's up to you to get it out of APR. Well, that's not that easy to get out of APR.
Yeah.
Is anybody surprised at the prices of APR farms now?
I mean, I'll speak candidly, like, so the Brownell property that, you know, was transferred for about $1 million and I believe was on the market now for $4 million. The reality is, like, you know, there's not a farmer that's going to be buying that. Maybe there's a gentleman farmer that's decided to, you know, retire and, you know, burn money that way. To some degree, bringing this fund to place creates that sort of due diligence on a public nature, as opposed to keeping it just always in a private sale. I mean, with private sale, I mean, it's hard to know, you know, it's hard to say this farm will succeed or this farm won't succeed, but I would be hopeful. You know, I think a number of the farms that the funds used in the previous 3 decades have been successful. I can't speak to the situation there. I mean, the dairy industry, the folks that bought that are in the dairy industry, like, agriculture as a whole is a really extremely difficult way to make a living. And there's certain parts of it that are even more difficult. I milked cows when I lived in New York before I moved here in the winter times, and I grew veggies, and I loved working around the cows. I was like, I would never think about milking cows because I couldn't see the numbers. Like, we were like getting paid the same dollar figure more or less in 2005 and 6 that the farmers are getting right now today. So,
So let me just clarify something, because Michael asked a question. When you buy, let's use the farm that you just mentioned, okay? So if that farm's on the market now, it is over $4 million, and you have your fund, you get money from us, and you make an offer after it's been on the market for 2 or 3 years, and it's an APR farm, so you're gonna use it as a farm, and you make an offer and it's accepted, then you have to find a farmer, right? And then that's the question that I don't know that you were asking or not. How, you make a determination who's gonna farm that property. explain to us what happens from that point on.
Great. Why don't you jump in, Sue, because you've been more involved in that in the past.
And because this is going to be something new for us, I'm going to base it on my experience with the Ag Preservation Trust. It would go out as an RFP. We would get proposals from farmers. And then we would sit down. We have the criteria all laid out. I think you received it in your packets. We would go through the criteria and based on the proposals we had and decide who was the best match, based on soil type, based on, what their farm plan looks like, on all those issues. And then that's how they were chosen. And surprisingly enough, it was based on, not on the price, but on the strength of their farm business plan.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Other questions?
Clarify.
Can I help you?
Yes, it did, yeah.
How did you come about figuring out what to ask for in terms of what kind of money a fund like this really needs to be effective?
Well, it could be a lot bigger in the sense of, from a resource perspective. What we tried to do is put a little bit of an upfront to have greater capacity out the gate, but with an awareness of some of the properties in town that were are on our radar and looking at previous comps, aware of some of the properties that weren't able to be preserved in the last 5 to 6 years, and conversations like, well, how much do we really need to make a difference? And the idea there, I think what's acute to me, so I moved to Dartmouth in 2008. I didn't know Dartmouth when Fred spoke of it. And I've often told people, I said, I don't know if I'd actually want to farm here if I knew what it had been once upon a time, because I think I'd have that generational heartbreak that comes with change. And just can be completely honest, right? But when I came here for the Tucker Road property, the Dominican Sisters, that was offered as a lease agreement. It was only through that opportunity that Dartmouth even popped up. My wife grew up on the vineyard. Her dad was a ground fisherman. He brought his fish over to New Bedford, so we were sort of like, gets us in that zone. When we look at the properties today, what I'm aware of is we're getting to the point where there's a lot less of them still on the potential radar going forward. And so when I see this fund, I think it's hard to say, but it's going to be the leverage, hopefully, that allow us to preserve some of the last key properties in town. In 10 years from now, the conversations that we're going to be having is probably most of those circles up there have gone through a transfer. And whether they go into development, I'm super pro-development, but I want to see development take place in places in town where maybe it makes sense. And obviously, from an agricultural perspective, I think agricultural land is not that place. Or if it gets preserved, then we'll continue to add more preservation. But I don't think this is this isn't a conversation we're going to constantly have, because at some point the door is going to be completely closed. And folks that have been in town probably have a better, more acute sense of how that feels. But I know even since I've been here in 2008, there's been a lot of farms that have transitioned over that time period. Both towards development. I mentioned to Sue, not a farm that I knew of as a farm, but the open space across from UMass Dartmouth, that I would think of it as more as like the field I used to occasionally see the cross-country kids run across through and stuff like that. I never knew that as an agricultural property, but at the same time, I also was like, boy, it would be nice to have that little piece of land. That would be a great property for somebody to do what I do, which is high-value vegetables or fruit or something like that right across from. So at some point, all of these opportunities will no longer exist. And what we're trying to do is hopefully create those opportunities for the future generations. And it's kind of now or never is the feeling that I get. So, do you want to speak any more about how we came up with the number? Or other things?
It was somewhat based on the fact that we started with the 2.75 million in 1998, and we didn't want to, we wanted to make enough of an ask that we knew we could make somewhat of a difference. But if you had looked at this, if we had put the circles on this map of farms that existed in 1998, you would have seen a whole lot more red circles for sure. The farm that Derek alluded to across from UMass Dartmouth, I don't want to get like it. That farm was also on the university side as well. And the portion of that farm was taken by eminent domain. So if you ever have a chance to look at aerial photographs of the university prior to its development, it's enough to make you cry, because that was a huge area, and it looks just the way you would expect to see large farmland plots in Pennsylvania. And they just don't exist anymore. And the 2.75 million that we were able to get because of the override gave us an opportunity that we didn't have before, because the state was not interested in preserving farmland. And by the state, I mean that at the time it was the it was the Department of Agriculture, which today it's a little different. But they were not interested in coming down here because they always said they got a bigger bang for their buck out in the valley. So why would they come here? And they pretty much had written this area off as a bedroom community for Boston. And people that lived here just weren't willing to see it that way. And we were fortunate in that respect.
In terms, first, any other questions from folks? We did get the opinion from town council, just confirming that by statute, all the town can set up such a fund does not need town meeting approval. It's by statute. Such a fund can be basically created by just putting money into it. It's an accounting kind of thing. And we did ask about transferring a balance of the ag trust money, if there is any. I think there's a small balance certainly compared to what it started with. That isn't as clear. So just so folks know, it's not so straightforward, and that money could just be transferred in. And what you have resubmitted in terms of more clearly describing the Ag Commission role and the statute and the advisory committee's role per the town council, that squares everything in terms of CPA eligibility, in terms of capitalizing a fund. Do you envision, in terms of how to operationalize such a fund, do you envision basically adopting pretty much what the Ag Trust bylaws, kind of in terms of procedure, administration of the funds, and sort of how would you evaluate?
Yeah, I mean, I think the
proposal, et cetera.
The Ag Preservation Trust Fund hasn't done a lot of transfers in recent years. But I think up until the point that it kind of diminished its resource base, it was seen as a successful technique and model. So I don't think that we need to, drift very far from that. Sitting here, there's probably some things we need to discuss in terms of like who would get recused if certain properties come up and how, those kind of decisions take place. I think there was some confusion maybe the last time I wasn't able to make the meeting about like how much was in the Ag Preservation Trust. And I think one of the realities is because that had dwindled to a point where it wasn't as significant, there wasn't as much like consistent accounting. And I think, we would go back to, on the Ag Commission meetings, as part of every meeting, we would introduce minutes that would involve checking into our fund base and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it would be a fairly similar situation. So does anybody feel differently? I don't want to speak for everybody else.
Yeah, I imagine you're gonna have to adopt some kind of procedure and policy, but. it's
Yeah, but
probably
I think
a
they've laid the groundwork for
starting
what,
point.
what has worked well in the past. I don't think, it'd be probably some minor tweaks to update, but, I mean, the big things that have changed over the years is obviously the land values have continued to go up. And thankfully for us, the partnerships that have taken place both through DNRT, Coalition, trustees to some degree, those have all been tested more over the years. And so I think there's also a little bit more acute awareness of when certain properties come up. We already know like which properties the coalition scores highly on their rubrics. We have a conversation with Nick and so on and so forth, and we have already kind of scored internally.
Okay, great. I think as like the MOU that lays out what the advisory committee's role is and any of the kind of procedures, I think I would imagine we would assume as a committee that this is keeping the town administrator and select board in the loop as these, just so that everybody can stay on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I imagine, select board signatures or approval probably needed ultimately when you decide we're gonna move on this property.
And I think there's
I'm pretty sure you can't write too many big checks without the.
No, and I think there's opportunity. Obviously, COVID was sort of everybody went into their caves. And, I think there's opportunity to re-engage town administrator. Like, we used to do a little bit more farm tours and kind of engagement of not necessarily the public, but the leadership in town, And so I think those are opportunities that we can kind of reconnect with. Susan's been terrific at CMAP. She, a lot of the state legislatures. But we probably could circle back and think about, revisiting, like, could we get Vince and Elizabeth to do a tour at Copacut to kind of showcase what's happened there? What I'm always aware of, when I first moved to town, I was working with a nonprofit at the Y the first year, and we were working with some funders. And what I didn't realize, because I only knew things through an agricultural lens, which is, farmers tend to like get in there and just keep working and working and working, is there just how much leadership change takes place over time and how there needs to be kind of a constant re-education. And we've done that for various points to various degrees with our town leadership. There's obviously certain select board members that are, more connected to the agri community than they are. I think there's opportunity then to reconnect that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah,
Really appreciate, yes, sure, you can do that.
Came to mind as listening to the conversation
Yep.
about how these funds can be useful. I've witnessed a few fundraising campaigns and conservation efforts over the years. And one thing that has become obvious to me is that when it comes to fundraising efforts to preserve farms, a lot of times neighborhood support is very important. So farms that are in neighborhoods that are more well-funded, as it were, a lot of times have a greater likelihood of raising money for conservation efforts. One of the things that would be valuable for the Ag Commission to have some of this funding is that we could recognize agriculture as the first priority in preserving land, and it might actually allow us to value land specifically for its agricultural viability, as opposed to pieces being conserved based on fundraising from within a neighborhood. So it might be a way for taxpayers to sort of potentially feel more empowered with their money going to not necessarily conserve properties only in certain neighborhoods, but also, throughout, more widely spread throughout the town. That was just something that came to mind.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion to close the public hearing.
Let's get the Valley project, has that been pulled?
That, yes,
Yes,
withdrawn.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
the
that.
parties weren't ready to go forward.
Motion to close the public hearing.
A second? Second. We want to talk about that further? I don't think so. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks. Thank you all. All right, I think, shall we proceed on? I will check in as we go to each agenda item on our stamina. And there is still more banana bread out there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
No, but you are going to get. Okay, we're gonna take a look at our finances, going into this conversation. We're familiar with this format, but I just wanna walk us through it. So this is an estimate of what our FY '27 budget would look like. The state match that our estimate is carrying is 15%. Department of Revenue just recently put out a notice that they anticipate a 15.5% match. So we're kind of in that ballpark. Based on year-over-year 2% increase in collections, which has been holding pretty steady year to year, we would have an estimated surcharge revenue in fiscal '27 of about $970,000 and a little bit more. So 15% of that, by our estimate, is about another $143,000 in state funds, which brings us to about $1.1 million expected revenue, CPA revenue in fiscal '27. We have no debt service. If we approve our standard administrative budget, that would be $35,000. So the net revenue projected is $1,078,000. We are projecting, going into the fiscal year, of having a reserve balance as of June 30th of this year. Our projection is a reserve balance of about $4.6 million. So if we hit that number, we'll be very close to it, I would imagine. 4.6 million, and then another $1 million, plus a little bit more than $1 million in revenue. We're somewhere in the $5.7 million available for projects in fiscal '27. So any questions about that? That's kind of the picture, what we're kind of looking into, forward into.
And then, Buddy, just to go back to the application for a second, so we had 4, and it looks like 1, 2, 3 of the 4 are all in open space, is that correct? Would they all fit into, like, Duval, Crapo, and
Yes.
Sorry, the last one we
Correct.
just heard, the
Yeah, yes, that's
Agricultural
right.
Commission.
Yeah.
They would all go, all 4 of those would go in, so there's
Yeah.
5, so
Yeah.
4 of the 5.
Yep, that's right. And we can use the reserve and the unrestricted towards that, and revenue. So we have a special reserve account, the unrestricted reserve account, and then any incoming money can be committed towards these projects. Okay, that's kind of the base, that's kind of our projection going into the fiscal year. I'm suggesting that we continue with our standard administrative budget, so I just wanted you all to take a look at that. Which is $35,000, 3,600 staff support, 2,400 in supplies, 3,500 in the Preservation Coalition dues. I haven't heard that they're changing. $5,000 in legal, $10,000 for any consultation, and that leaves us with still having a $3,500, well, actually a $10,500 contingency. So, as we kind of go into making decisions, my recommendation is we just continue with the standard administrative budget. I don't think we have ever spent our standard administrative budget. I think we usually come in about.
What was that, buddy? I'm
I
sorry.
don't think we've ever spent the whole
No,
administrative
we've
budget.
never gone over the
Yeah,
administrative budget.
so it all just rolls back into the unrestricted fund for projects in the future.
Make a motion, we approve a administrative budget this year for a town meeting of $35,000.
A second on that? Jim, any other questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. In terms of project reserves, as we discuss warrants, it may be a little bit more clear what we want to do with project reserves, but based on the proposals before us, we would need to put reserves in housing, but the historic preservation and the open space proposals, if we are recommending them, if they're approved, they would meet our 10% requirement. So we may want to think about how much we want to decide about reserves in this June town meeting, because we also have October town meeting to adjust any of our reserves and stuff. That's what I have to say about that. Okay. So, to make our life a little bit easier, we always look at our warrant templates. And what I did is kind of spelled it out a little bit more specifically on these projects, so we don't have to keep thinking about all the different things to insert into the warrant like template. So obviously this is the 2027, so I just put that in everywhere, and who the project sponsor is, I stuck that in. So as we talk about these and then want to make our decisions, we'll go back to these templates, but mainly the thing we need to think about is how much from where, if we're going to support something. And those are the two figures, two things to figure out, and then, I'm hoping that makes it easier for you to know what we just did. Okay.
So, buddy, can I just clarify, just to make sure I understand?
Yes.
So, in terms of what we have available in each reserve,
Yeah.
if I look at, because we have 2 historic and 3 open space, so I'll just pick on historic for a minute. So historic, you're saying the balance approximately right now is 636,000, a little over. And then you're adding in the revenue up above, or the proportion, 10%, I think it is, that gets put into that?
Yeah, if
amount?
we were to do that, that's what it
Okay.
would look like, yeah.
And then so when we're evaluating those proposals, we have 748,785 in that reserve, or we will, projected,
Yeah.
which we could apply, and then anything beyond that, we would have to take from the projected unrestricted.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Yeah,
making sure
yeah,
I'm reading
yeah.
that right. Okay.
Yeah, and we can decide that, let's say if, so one of the historic ones is over $112,000. So I think, let's just say DCTV to be easy about that. We could choose not to put anything into reserve. So then the reserve, the historic commitments are against the 636.
Okay.
So we don't have to put in the 112 and then draw it down. We could just draw it down if we have more than $112,000 in commitments.
But you can't mix match, so in other words, we don't have any housing proposals in front of us. So we couldn't take the 112 and put it towards historic? That's not allowed, can't do that?
Right, so we know we have to put 112,
Yeah.
at least 112 into the community housing, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the 10% is a 10% set aside or project commitment from the estimated fiscal year revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, DCTV. Back to the bottom of the file now. Historic preservation, the amount of funds requested, $461,394.
Buddy, if you don't mind, can we have a big picture discussion before we take up?
Sure, yeah.
In
Start us off.
no particular order of
Yeah.
of funding. So, from my perspective, this is an unprecedented year. We've got the most tenure. I mean, we've never seen this before.
Yeah.
This amount of applications for this amount of money
Yeah.
in my tenure, and it's been over
Yeah.
20 years. You and I, buddy, have been here. So unprecedented. So I would like to have a discussion with the committee. You know, we're looking at, from my figures, 3.6 million plus if we fund all these requests, 5 requests, this year. So from the big picture, I want to ask the committee to get a consensus, do we want to spend that much this year? And if we don't, then let's have a discussion on prioritizing before we start dictating, well, DCTV just has to be the first one on the page. That may be the one, you know, the majority may want to cut that one or another one. So I just want to have that discussion and try to
That's
get
good.
people thinking about the big picture.
Right.
That's-
Do as much as, you know, we've been here a long time, just about every request that's, from what I can recall, Buddy, the only time we've denied requests is because they didn't meet the letter of the law. Because we couldn't.
Probably.
It was never, I'm just not in favor of the project. You know, we've always, you know, felt that they were decent projects, we had the money, and we were able to fund it. We're in a position now that we may have to start looking at, do we want to start really prioritize and maybe looking at cutting some of this? I look at New Bedford, I don't know what their, I'm sure their revenue is much greater than us, and their requests are much greater, but we're giving out $1 million. They're giving out $100,000 for this project, for this, you know, they're giving out $30,000, $45,000, $100,000, you know, and I'm like, geez, we're fortunate, we don't have to be in that position when somebody comes in asking for $1 million, all we can give you is 100. We're not there yet, but we gotta seriously think that we're gonna be there, that we're gonna have to start making some cuts, because we can't sustain this. And the CPC, in my opinion, has kind of been a sleeper in town, but it's getting more and more recognitions where the town is hitting us up more often than they ever did, and organizations are hitting us more often than they did. We're very transparent on how much money we got, where it is. Anybody can look up that information, so we're getting quite popular. So we're gonna have to make some tough decisions, and I think this year may be the start of it. So I'm putting that out there.
So
I agree.
other big
I
picture
agree.
perspectives.
Well, I just want to clarify something with John, you said, John, so in terms of the big picture, so one of the requests has, you know, it's a forward committing process of 750 for the next 3 years beyond this year. So we have to factor that into the equation too, I assume, based on our current reserves. because we don't know what we're gonna get in the future. I mean, we could continue to get 15%, I mean, again, we have a ballpark of what we're gonna get, but, my point is, we still have to factor that into this equation, right, of the funding decision. So if you add up that total plus all these other totals, we're looking, I think, at like 5.8 million, roughly, in total requests.
Yeah, but we're not voting on it tonight.
No.
Right, that's, they haven't applied for the 750 each year. I'm sure they will.
Well, we would
But
be
doesn't mean we can,
committing to it,
we
wouldn't
we may not commit to that next year. So even though we've been made aware, we may not, that may
I
never
think
come
that's
to
the request.
fruition.
I think
But
the request
it's-
is for us to commit to it.
I thought they did too.
Yeah, they're asking us to commit now.
Oh, I don't think we can. We
But
can't commit.
I thought they were.
I don't
No,
know,
I
I
think
don't know
that-
what I can say and can't
No,
say, I don't
I
know,
don't know.
but,
Multi-year
but
request.
I don't think, can the CPC do a multi-year
Yes.
okay.
Yes, he
'Cause
can.
someone was telling me that,
A town meeting can approve a multi-year.
That was a question before.
And I think that's the
Subject
way
to-
it's worded in
to
their
availability
their
of funds.
proposal.
You're absolutely.
So
right.
is that what they were asking for?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't, I thought it was just putting us
So
on
$1.5
notice
million
that-
in year one, and
year,
then
And
750
we
for
can
the
do
next
that
three.
legally.
And we can talk about that.
So
Yeah,
other,
yeah, I definitely want to.
other big picture perspectives on all or some of this, yeah.
just as someone who runs a nonprofit, funding is really tight right now, and everybody is fighting tooth and nail for every available dollar, and I don't expect that to change in the foreseeable future. So I think a lot of people are, looking for where they're gonna, different places.
Agreed.
Margaret, big picture?
The only thing I'm going to say, because I think when they come here and ask us for money, they should have everything lined up and done, okay? The ball field, they haven't gone before the Russell's Mills Historic. There's a chance that they might say no to that. That neck of the woods, we have a lot of land that is either in CR or public, okay? So we have, I don't know, maybe 1,000 acres. Housing is a problem right now. I'm hesitant because I don't think that house should be torn down. That house, although it's not old enough for historic, it does have a lot of historic value to Russell's Mills Road. That was Chief DeVal's house. He was the fireman, fire chief for many, many years. They started at a price of $995,000 for that house. Maybe if they had started a little lower, maybe a family would have bought that house. I'd like to see a family in that house. I don't think that we need to knock a house down for 2.5 acres when we have a park next door. We have the tennis courts, we have the fishing, you can hike, you can put your canoes out there, because I do it. I put my canoe out there. So the big picture for me is, I'm not crazy about the ball field. And John said we never say no, but I think they should have gone to the Russell's Mills Historic Society
Let me
first.
pull you back to big, that's the little picture, but and we will have that, we'll get to
Okay.
that. Big picture.
Okay.
What's your big picture?
When you say how much money we should spend, is that what you're saying?
No, just kind of big, I mean, as John said, this is a very unprecedented amount of requests. Can we afford it? Can we not afford it? That's a big picture view.
Okay. I think we have to be careful. I agree.
Yeah,
I
right.
agree with what Michael has said. This is a lot of money. And, life changes. As you get older, you realize that life changes and things change in life. So I don't want to see the CPC without any money. I mean, there's things
Yeah,
that
that's a
are
good big
needed,
picture.
and, yeah, things that are needed in the future. And I would like to make sure that we have money for those other things that may be needed. That's all. That's my big
Okay.
picture.
Christina?
I think my big picture is, goes back to some of the things people spoke about with the changes to the town over time. I grew up here, I moved away in '83, and I came back in 2013 because this was the only place I wanted to be again. And the character of the town surely had changed, but there was so much that was still so good and so much the same, and a lot of that has to do with land. And so I think, when I think about the most worthy projects and where the big money should be spent, it's on preserving those parts of the character of the town, that if they get snapped up, or if a family were to buy that parcel of land and tear that house down anyway and put up something else, or the loss of land is the thing that tugs at my heart the most, and that I think the money is most worthy to be spent on. And I know that there are different ways to look at that, and the different projects hit that differently, but I haven't had enough time on this committee to have the perspective that you do. But I think that money, if we don't spend it now to preserve that land, you can't undo that.
May I just say one thing? One small thing. No one can tear anything down in the historic without going for permission. So
Right.
you can't do that without getting permission.
Right, I understand that.
Jim, big picture?
Speaking of the Duval parcel.
That's little picture, big picture.
Well,
Because we will talk about the ball.
Okay.
We're gonna have that opportunity.
As I bored you to tears in the past with, I was on CPC in another town. And over a period of years, we were selective, and we were much more active in fine-tuning the proposals that came to us, and which I think saved or kept some of the costs down. But as a consequence of that, over the first dozen or so years of the Community Preservation Act, it's a town about the size of this with roughly $1 million a year of revenue. We managed to build up unallocated reserves of over $5 million. And the folks in the town hall who were worrying about the rest of the town budget, I think, noticed that. And there was in the town a large park, a large and complicated park, which was capable of absorbing the $5 million through because of many years of deferred maintenance. So, I mean, if we are sitting on reserves of $5 million, we are, I mean, we'd have a hard time turning away projects that we may not deem as particularly worthy. So that's an argument in favor of we don't need to keep too much dry powder. That's and you know, and we will disagree, but you know, I look at the cable studio as deferred maintenance, and
That's small picture.
I know it's small picture.
Because we're gonna talk about that.
And
Joan,
we'll
let
come
me
back
go-
to
Let me
that.
move it to Joan, since this is your second meeting?
This is my
What's
second
your
meeting.
big picture?
My big picture is I'm
I
still.
wanna go home.
I want to go home.
Understandably, it's your second meeting tonight.
I'm still on a learning curve, so,
Yeah.
but I do understand, I mean, everything sounds like a worthy project. I'm unfortunately coming to this with the most projects you ever had, so this is.
Yeah.
But I do understand the budget, you know, the concern of depleting all the funds in the CPC, so, you know, so I guess I don't have a good answer on that because I'm just learning, so.
That's a great answer, though. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple of things. One is, I think for the taxpayers who put aside that surcharge every year, it's really important that there's a public benefit, something tangible, right? This is not a rainy day fund. And so I'm always concerned about that we can go, that town meeting and that town residents can point to tangible CPA projects. Our accounts don't mean anything and shouldn't mean anything to a taxpayer because that's money that they contributed to, but until it goes out as a project, it's meaningless. And so I'm always thinking about that. That it's more important to be tangible than in the bank. But the fiscal piece is important because we want to be able, so that, and so I think that's one thing. And then the other part, which I think is probably for me a big picture of why most projects do go forward to town meeting is, in reality, we are not decision makers. We have no authority, right? The statute's very clear. The decision-making body for CPA funds is town meeting. And so I'm always careful that we are not a gatekeeper in ways that we should not be a gatekeeper. If there are issues about the merit of a project outside of eligibility, outside of financial management, outside of fiscal, those are all important. We're doing the due diligence for town meeting. That's our job. We're the people with the little green visors in the back room, but the board of directors is in that very fancy seat in the high school auditorium. And so that's where the decision about, I think, is it good to take down the house or not? Do you like that or not? I appreciate your opinion, but I think that belongs to town meeting.
It does.
Question, in terms of whether it makes a difference, whether town meeting even gets to consider it. So we have to, so I'm always careful that we're a due diligence group. We're not making policy decisions for town meeting.
True.
And so we have to think about that. And then financially, I think it's really important to think about, we want to be able to be responsive in the future. And so when I look at these numbers, one, we have this unique issue of this enormous reserve in historic preservation. So I'm thinking we've got to use, that money needs to be tangible, it needs to be a project someplace. So I'm thinking that if that money could be drawn down, that's super important because typically our historic preservation requests are very, very small. Very hard to draw down this reserve over years. And then I'm thinking we probably bring in, and we'll continue to bring in about $1 million or a little $1 million plus a year. So part of my calculation in my head is how much we spend and then against the revenue stream that is pretty consistent. It's not a very erratic revenue stream, only the state match, which is about, like I said, we're running like 15%. So 85% of our revenue stream is very stable, the surcharge revenue. So there's some predictability. This is highly unusual kind of session, but I don't see, so I would need to be convinced that this is our trend going forward. This is super unusual. And then financially, in the back of my head, we have the ability to borrow money. We brought down an enormous debt service amount, and I think we did a great job of bringing it down to zero. Our agreement with Finance Committee several years back was to keep it, bring it down and keep it under 25% of our revenue. I mean, I'm not even sure if we'd ever want to go there, but we don't have to stay at zero. So when we hit a big project where cash flow is an issue, bonding is an option.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be a fiscally irresponsible option since we have no debt service. So we're in a very good position
Okay.
to kind of buffer a big request that might create a cash flow. So financially, I'm thinking we can afford the big picture. Because we've got a steady revenue stream, probably unusual amount of requests, and we have a ability to bond if we need to. So, those-
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's all right, I just dream about the CPC.
No, I just wanted to make sure I remember everything, but, so I understand your analogy with town meeting being the decision maker and we're the accountants behind the scenes. Where is our due diligence for, and I'm not saying that this is our responsibility, but I have two things. One is, our due diligence on projects, like sussing out projects where clearly there's no other money, like they've applied for grants, but the organization or the group, they clearly are not well-resourced, and therefore we might be like, yes, let's give them that full amount. And we always talk about skin in the game, and can't you put more skin in the game? And then organizations that are strategically tapping CPC, but they do have the ability to have more skin in the game. Like, I don't see us, like, we haven't really pressed, though, and it's really hard to judge someone else's. I mean, we've pressed DCTV really hard, and they've come back, and now understanding some of their financials, I'm like, oh, okay. But like, where is our due diligence lie there? And then where, from the time I've relatively been on the CPC for a short time, but it seems like we've gone with some pretty messy projects in the sense that, like, we're sort of ready, but we're not quite ready. And so they've gone on for years because, and I get projects hit big speed bumps, but is there a point where we push back and say, you need to get your house in a little more order because we've got a lot going on right now? Like, I don't know, not having been on it long, so sort of, like, is there pushback for projects to have everything in order first? Or do we, I mean, it does give a lot of flexibility for projects that are a little more difficult and hard. So I don't know, those are just like two things that are like swimming around my brain.
Right, those are important questions, yeah, Joan?
I do have a question, though. I mean, from what my understanding is, we're making recommendations, we're recommending board to town meeting. So somewhat like the finance committee makes the recommendations to.
We actually, our job is to put, we're the only ones who can put a CPA warrant on, out there. So
Okay.
we put those on the town warrant.
Okay,
Yeah.
we put them, so we're deciding whether they go on the warrant.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I understand now, okay.
Yeah.
So for me, big picture is, I'm looking at this year, and in my opinion, they're all worthy projects. And I'd like to see them all go through. But big picture, I know it's not sustainable. And the one that gives me the biggest heartburn is the one I'm most in favor of doing something about, and that's the AG request. They're at a request of 1.5 million. That's a big ticket. And for someone who's grown up in Dartmouth their whole life, someone who was raised on a small farm, man, I'm disgusted about what we've done to this town and farming. 69 years old, and I can't believe the changes in my 69 years here. It's disgusting what we've lost so it's dear to my heart, what they're trying to do. I've got heartburn on the process and what I do for the town as a volunteer here in prioritizing taxpayers' money. That's what we do. We look at it, we prioritize it, we decide what goes forward, what doesn't go forward, what's the bigger priority. AG is asking for substantial
Let me-
amount of money.
Yeah, that's a little picture conversation.
No, but I'm getting to the big picture.
Okay.
AG is asking for a substantial amount of money over the next 4 years. Well, they're gonna be sitting on $3.75 million at the end of this, if we approve their request. And they're gonna have a committee that's gonna vet those farms that may come up for sale. That's what we do. We're the experts at vetting out projects and where the town should be.
Okay.
There's a
I have
committee
to
that
stop
already
you,
does
because
that.
That's a little picture thing, and Susan can't be here for that, so that's why I'm trying to.
We're not voting, so Susan,
And she can't be part of the discussion, so.
she's not part of the discussion. I'm very familiar with the state ethics law. She can't sit in the room.
Okay.
State ethics recommends she removes herself from the table, you know.
But if you wanna talk. right,
And
if
she
you
can be
wanna-
part of the discussion,
That's
but
fine.
she's got to,
But if you wanna
anyway, so.
talk about the ag project, well, let's just talk about it in all of those details. We'll
Should we
take
get
it up
right
first.
into them? Should we just go?
Okay,
That's
so
all I'm saying.
I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm proposing something, a fix to this, so if you let me finish, is,
Yeah.
my concern is that they're sitting on $3.75 million. We get projects coming every year, and we prioritize them. We've done a poor job, not us, but we've got nobody coming for historic preservation. We haven't added a single housing unit for our elderly. In my 69 years in the town of Dartmouth, we haven't added a single unit for the elderly. I don't want to be in a position 3 or 4 years down the road, and somebody comes in with a fantastic project. And you know me, I'm in love with people that come in with skin in the game. I love projects where they got matching funds of 50%. That's a no-brainer. You come in, you're getting 50% from DNRT, and we only got to donate. That's a good return for the taxpayer. You know, I love those projects. We give up this money, and that $3.75 million is sitting there waiting for a farm. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years before they expend that money. And we got this fantastic project that comes in that's looking for $4 million. Jesus, we can only afford $2 million. I'm playing hypothetical. And yet we got $3.75 million of our money sitting over here that we can't touch. What I'm proposing, buddy, is they didn't present to me an argument for speed on they need to be able to act quick on purchasing a farm. In fact,
John, you're just talking about the project. I need to.
it's not the
I'm
project,
fine-
it's the big picture on where we're going
Yeah,
with
but you're
the
only
Ag
describing the
Commission.
big picture in terms of one project, and so that feels like a project conversation.
No, I'm talking about
That's
how
all.
we expend money in general. If you just give me the.
Put it in,
in-
don't talk about the ag fund anymore, but talk about what your big picture is.
I can't get my point across,
Oh.
buddy, without talking
I'm
about
sorry.
the
Keep trying, keep
Ag
trying.
Commission, you know, and
powder
what we
dry.
could do.
He keeps them
What
powder dry.
I'm proposing to do, buddy, is we only fund them $750,000. It gives them a starting point, it gives them.
John, I gotta stop you, I gotta stop you. You're now making a specific proposal. So all I wanna say is, let's take it up first, because you can continue the big picture conversation in
Okay,
the
so let's take it
context.
up. I'm making the picture. All right, if you
That's
want to take
all-
that up first.
That's all I'm
okay.
driving at.
All right, so.
Susan, excuse us.
Okay.
That
It is,
would be
all right,
great.
before I leave, it's 9:23.
Yeah.
I have Ag Day at the State House tomorrow. I have to get up super early.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if these conversations need to be, we did reserve next week. I'm just gonna say, I think this is gonna be a long conversation.
Okay, so we will put ourselves on a time, that's a good point. We'll put ourselves on a time thing, because we do have next week reserved. All right, great.
So
sorry,
on the,
yes,
ag,
go
if
ahead.
we fund $750,000,
Yeah,
and I'm against making it a multi-year proposal, but we give them $750,000. The other $750,000, we establish a policy on our own in our unrestricted funds that we put funds aside for purchases of farms in that unrestricted fund. So we got $750,000 in that unrestricted fund that we've earmarked, just an earmarked. It's not binding, it's an earmark, $750,000 to purchase a farm before we did. The following year, we do the same thing. We earmark $750,000 for the Ag Commission. I like that because we're in control. So if that big picture comes through where someone's coming in looking for $4 million and they need, we need to fund $2 million, we've got it. We can say, what if, hypothetically, we look at open space or, like I said, a housing, we finally get a private developer wants to come in and do some affordable housing, and looking for some small change from the town. Boy, wouldn't that be nice to fund that project? And if we didn't have the money, we'd have it in that earmark. We could borrow it from that account and we pay it. We don't have that luxury if we let them sit on $3.75 million.
I want to hear from some other folks.
So it's just something
Yeah,
to
right,
consider,
okay,
that we
right.
earmark the funds and we stay in control of it at all times. But we set a policy, let's not spend it unless we absolutely have to. And if we do, we replenish it.
We're gonna talk about this one now.
We are now talking about the Ag Fund project, yeah.
Well, they're asking for, the first year, they're not asking for that much money.
They're asking for 1.5 million the first year.
But they're not asking for the 750 until it's 3 more years. So we're not gonna be sitting on 3.75.
No, but eventually they would be.
Eventually, but
Right.
we're not right now,
No, I understand that.
okay? So what,
And they could buy a couple of farms.
right,
Yeah, in the
between now
meantime,
and
oh, I
then,
get
but
that,
if they
yeah.
didn't have that money, they couldn't.
right. I mean, we talk about, Christine and I are at odds at one thing, but we talk about wanting to keep the town the way it is. And one of the things that I think, well, let me give you an example, John. I live on Hosnick Road. Everybody here, the old timers, remember the Isaac Farm, correct? Okay, he had almost 1,000 acres between Hosnick Road, Bonnie's Joy, blah, blah, blah. Well, Mr. Isaac was a smart man, because when he died, his kids wanted to put in about 44 houses on Hosnick Road. Mr. Isaac got a lawyer, the lawyer was a smart lawyer, and he said, okay, I know my kids are gonna do this, but he made it so that every lot had to be 8 acres. So that's what he did. Now, in the meantime, we have a lot of agricultural farms around there. We've got Jeff's, we've got Andy Burns, who's a big farmer. We've got a lot of farms around there. When I first moved there, we had farms on Hosnick Road, Westport, Mr. Isaac's farm. I used to wake up in the morning, we had horses and steers. I think the agricultural needs to preserve land in this town. We have almost 1,000 units of housing with, trying to come into this town right now, the 40Bs. If those 1,000 units come into this town, it's gonna change this town forever. This town is not gonna be the nice little town that we're all sitting here now. Got to preserve the farms. That's all I'll say.
Other thoughts, Christine?
I couldn't agree more, that's all.
I agree.
I think my comment and listening to John's thing, I think I sort of agree, half agree, I guess, in some ways. I feel like, I think the problem I have is that the request is 3.75 over 4 years, right? So I think that if we give them a chunk now and see what happens with that money, essentially, see if it's put to use, see what kind of offers they get, whatever, see what kind of land they can find, and do a test run. And then, like, next year, they can still come back and ask for more money. We'll still have it. But I do like the idea of them being the custodian of, of making the decisions as to, what properties to buy and what farmers they're gonna, RFP it to and everything else, because that's their expertise, and we really shouldn't get involved in having farmers come in here and, ask us for money or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so I just think that, but if we do it in smaller chunks over that 4-year period, I think I just feel more comfortable knowing that we got about $700,000 going into the unrestricted every year, and that we're putting a little over $100,000 into each category, if you will, each year. So it's sort of backfilling, but if we take too much out at once, it's gonna take a lot longer for it to backfill. And that raises the concern that John has, which is what if we get a really good project that we'd like to fund, but we don't have the funds, and then that means we have to go down the path. It's nice to know that we have the option to bond and to do debt service, but it's also nice to be in a position that we don't have to, you know? So, you know, I know it sounds like we want our banana bread and eat it too, but at the same time, I mean, I think that's our role. I totally agree with you that the voters are the decision makers, but I think we are the fiduciaries that have to put the best proposal in front of them that protects the CPA funds long-term, that's all.
Yeah, I think a funded agricultural preservation fund is an important resource that the town doesn't have. And it's different from a town meeting twice a year in which you have to have a process to, essentially you have to have, you know, what is it? This is January, so you have to have almost 5 months ahead before you even know what the answer is gonna be. That's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Timeframes to work in real estate. And in conservation areas, you know, you've got DNRT that can front money, and there are resources in town around conservation land that can deal with that kind of a timeframe. Buzzards Bay Coalition. It doesn't exist in agriculture, and I think that's one of the things that's hard. And my hope is that it also gives the farming community some predictability. You know, if I'm a farmer and I'm like 58, and I'm thinking, I don't think I want to be farming, working this hard for the next, 12 years from now. But I know there's a pathway. It's just a little more predictable than, I wonder what town meeting will think of, wonder what they'll be like in 12 years. So I think the value, but I certainly understand people's concern about, well, how deep to get into this? And maybe the thing to think about is, maybe what we do is, but you need something to work with. So maybe it's honoring supporting the first year request, but not committing to multi-year. Certainly they can come back. And maybe that's the way of addressing, John, you're concerned about, well, what if it all just kind of like sits in a dustbin and we could have done something with it? And part of that is, let's set up the fund so that it can start to be viable, and we'll have time both to see, maybe we have, next year, we have a $10,000 request for funds, and that's it. We'll feel like we can afford that, because our reserves are all boosted up, maybe, So maybe that's the way to go, is to look and improve the 1.5, and then.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Okay, I put on my broker hat now, okay?
Yeah.
I'm a real estate broker now.
Yeah.
You wanna buy a farm, if you can find a farm for 1.7. Why don't we, I like what you said, but why don't we say, we're gonna give them 1.7, and then we're gonna give them 750, and then the other other $1.5 million, we've gotta wait. Because they have a better chance of buying something for $2.5 million or $2 million and not coming back to us. That's my idea, okay? I don't know, how everybody feels, but I certainly don't wanna see a lot of these farms,
So you, just to understand, then, John, you were saying a 2-year?
Yeah, we'd give them this,
A 2-year.
what they're asking now, and then we'd give them 1 year of 750.
All right, John?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I already said. My number one priority is ag and preserving farms. I'm 100%
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
But as a community preservation committee member, we've got to look at all the priorities in town. So we got this pile of money that the Ag Commission's gonna have, which I'm in favor of giving them something. But if it's this pile of money that they can only control, it's not that I'm afraid, well, it's sitting in a dustbin over there. It's, we look at the priorities. They have one goal, preserving farms, a great goal. I'm all behind them 100%. But somebody walks in, like I said, with some fantastic project where the town only has to put in 25 or 50% of the money to do this project, whether it's housing, whether it's land acquisitions, whatever it may be. That's a good thing for the taxpayers who we represent. That's my point. That should get priority. If we got a project like that, that's an excellent project, and we only have to spend half the money. We're getting $5 million, and we only have to spend, $2.5 million, and we end up with a $7.5 million. I'm just using hypotheticals.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want to lose the ability to do.
Yeah.
Not that I'm afraid they're gonna sit on it and not doing anything.
And I don't want to lose that ability either, and I guess what we're just thinking our risk is different. I totally agree with you. I don't
And
want
like I said, if we set our own policy and we earmark it, it's there for them. And we've sat through 20 years of bringing down that debt service. I don't want to go there again, buddy. We came on board and this, we were in serious debt because previous committees just spend, and borrow. We work hard to reduce that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in that position
And
again.
I'm on that page as well.
So that's always an option, but I don't want to be there. And that's why I think I'm in favor of maintaining control and earmarking money for those people in the event something comes down that we just can't let slip by. That's all.
Jim?
It always begins, I used to be on a CPC in another town. There was a housing trust, and they're just as farms, they would buy a house and fix it up and sell it. And we basically had, for a series of years, an annual stipend to that trust, which was their principal source of funding. There was a soft commitment that it would be an annual stipend, and if some terrific deal of the kind that John would get excited about came to us, I'm sure could have suspended it without too many tears. So I would be comfortable with, a good lump of, a big enough lump of money into the Ag Land Trust so that they can do a deal if one presents itself, but not getting us into a situation where if nothing comes up to them, we're 4 years in and there's $4 million sitting there and we don't have it. To the question of just how finicky should we be in vetting projects, tweaking projects, because after all, town meeting is the final deliberative body that is going to approve the appropriation. Ain't nothing deliberative about town meeting. Town meeting is a race to the exit. The average duration of town meeting in my time in town meeting is 2 hours and 43 minutes. And
That will do better this time.
and so
Somebody likes keeping stats. Wow.
I made that up. But town meeting is hardly deliberative, and so a town finance committee really earns its keep, or should earn its
Yes,
keep,
it does,
if they do a workmanlike job of vetting and tuning what goes to town meeting, and so that, so I won't apologize for.
So you're saying you could see supporting the initial outlay, but not necessarily a multi-year outlay?
And,
Is that
but,
what you're at, or that
Yeah.
you're comfortable with multi-year?
and give them some kind of soft assurance,
Okay.
soft,
Yeah.
indication that we are with them, especially if they find a deal in the first year or two. You know, and so, and we certainly don't want to be in a situation where we've dumped a big load of money there and it's going nowhere.
And yeah, yes,
Yeah, I have a
Margaret.
question, because I don't understand if we could do this, okay, because I haven't been on that long on this committee. But if we gave them the money and then put the rest in year 2, 3, or 4, and they happen to find a farmer that wants to sell and give it, you know, and sell it to them, can we give them the additional $750,000 without going to town meeting? Can they come in here by themselves?
No, you have to go to town meeting.
So, okay.
But, okay,
And the other thing to understand about this is, and I think this is one thing to, it's a revolving loan, it's a revolving fund. In other words, say if we capitalize the ag fund, and then they secured a purchase of farmland using that money, the town's not the farmer, so then the next thing they, you know, as like a typical 61A kind of a thing, it goes out, as they say, they put out an RFP, and then someone buys the land at the APR value. Well, the money they give the town goes not into the general fund, it goes back into that fund. So this outlay keeps coming back. So it's not like it's, we fund it, it goes out, and then they come back and get more funds, and it goes out and come back and get, it does, you get it, you get it up to a little point and it kind of revolves.
Do you recall the last time the AG came before us looking for funds?
What's that?
When was the last time the Agriculture Commission came before us? It's been
Long time,
years.
yes.
So I just want to point out one thing to the committee. So even the examples they set that we're familiar with, me and Buddy, the Copacut, the Susan Lagas, they named a few farms.
Those
that
are
they
early
were-
on.
They were able to purchase with Ag Commission funds.
Well, CPA was in Copacabana.
That's my point.
Right.
So not only did, you know,
Yeah.
they have ag funds, but they still came to the town for CPC funds. So timing was never an issue, that we gotta act fast on this because we gotta wait for town meeting. They still came for what, I'm in favor of giving them some money, so people know that they're a real player in the game. They're not going to the table not with nothing, they're going to the table with something, and oh, by the way, we can go to CPC. But my point is, when, you know, if we put all this money in there, and it could sit there for years, they haven't come and asked us for a single farm that's come up where they'd like to buy in years.
So if we do the, oh, Jim, do you want to say something?
Our question is, they don't have anything right now on the table that they're looking at. There's no land there's not a farm that they're looking at right now.
All
So,
those circles,
I'm sorry?
all those circles there were all farms that they were anticipating are gonna
anticipate
come up
coming
soon.
years.
Yeah, there's a,
Anticipating, but nothing's for sale right
Right.
now. Nothing, so so there is some time, you know, there would be some time for them to be able to purchase something.
and suppose they don't have quite enough money to get one of those large red circles.
Right.
How long does it take to, I mean, I know we have a tradition of town meeting at 2 particular times of year, but how long does it take to call a special town meeting? Cody?
That's a lot of money.
It varies, but you would need at least 2 months probably to effectively get a schedule, get everything prepared, get it out.
Yeah, I mean, but 2 months and not the 5 that, yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
So,
And so it mean, I don't know how much this has been done, but, I mean, a one article special town meeting is,
be tough.
well,
There's a cost to a town meeting.
Yeah,
so
there is
I'm
a
sure
cost
the
to a town
would weigh
meeting.
Jim, my point is, we've never lost a farm due to timing.
Well, I think the ag folks
You
would
know
probably say yes, and they gave us a list of ones
Yeah.
in their response, about 5 or 6 and stuff. So, you know, we don't hear about that, but.
But the CPC has been here, we've always been here.
Yeah.
They certainly could have come and requested money, it didn't happen, so.
I think
you know,
I have a
you know, the Sousa Lagasse, all these other farms weren't Ag Commission, there was Ag Commission, there was CPC, there was API, there was
Yeah,
multitude.
there could be
of-
USDA
And that all
money,
takes
yes,
time.
exactly.
So, no one's ever pointed the finger, we've lost a farm because of the bureaucracy we gotta go through with the town. Hasn't,
I don't think anybody's
I don't
coined
think
it that
that's
way,
it.
but I think people would say that if you're trying to deal with real estate issues, timing is everything. And so I think, you know, it sounds like we have some, bless you. It sounds like we have some sense of supporting a year one, and we differ on forward commitments as commitments to take to town meeting. So one thought is we could fund the first request. They can come back at any of our
that was an
rounds.
option, yeah.
In which these questions of what do we have in the bank, how much demand is there, that context will always be there for their requests. Does someone want to make a motion for us to consider?
So I will ask the question, because I've put it out there before, is 750 adequate to be a player at the table?
750?
Yeah.
Not what they're asking for,
Is
a
the
million?
first loan?
7?
No.
The first year they
I know
want-
that. We don't have to award the
No,
1.5.
no, but 750,000?
Yeah, I'm putting that, in my opinion, it is. I think anybody looking at, you know, the 1.5 isn't gonna be enough to buy, you know, the $4 million, what's his name
No,
wants
but it
for
might
his-
be enough to make a farmer wait 6 months.
Make a what?
A farmer wait 6 months to get another 750.
I think in all cases, it's worth, because they know that they've got partnerships such as Buzzards Bay Coalition, DNRT, and the town.
I think it's
I'm just throwing that out
No,
there. do
I'm
it.
gonna answer. I think it's $750,000. You can buy a house in Dartmouth for $750,000. I don't think you're gonna buy a farm.
I'm not saying that we can buy a farm. It makes you a player in the game, is
I
what I'm
don't think
saying.
it makes
is
you a
that
player
We're
in
a
the
serious
game.
player, and we will come back with additional funding. That's all I'm putting out there.
Christine?
I disagree. I think that there needs to be more funding initially so that you could really make a move in a hurry if you need to. And I think urgency is what I feel when I look at those red circles and I hear what the Ag Commission people said tonight. And I think that more money needs to be there, at least in the first year. You know, I'd like to fund it more than that, but I don't think 750 is enough.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll just throw a motion out there. I'd make a motion that we fund the $1,500,000 first year request with, with the fact that they know that they can come back in future rounds, and we have, two a year, to ask for more. It'll give them something to get started with and to prime the pump, so to speak, and then kind of figure it out and see, let them do some more due diligence and then come back at a later time. But I think it also shows our support that this is something that we all are in agreement conceptually that it's a good idea. So I would make the motion for $1.5 million.
Have a second?
For 1 year.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Here's the question. If they find a farm, and the farm is, let's say, 2.5 million or 2.2, and they have the 1.5, how long would it take them? Is it gonna be 6 months before we can give them the other?
Well, it depends on what other resources, like, so USDA, private contributions.
I
I mean,
understand
there are
that,
kind of
but-
other resources.
But if they
The
want money
state.
from us,
Oh, if they want money for us, they would just be on our regular funding
So
schedule.
it'd be 6 months?
Yeah, yeah, that's about every
About
6
6 months,
yeah.
okay.
Yep. All right, we're ready to vote. So all in favor of this motion, 1.5 million? Your hand?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. It was one of the best discussions. Absolutely. John, thank you. Big picture was the place.
Just trying to
for
make
us
people
to
think.
start. I know. That was excellent, excellent.
Do you need us to do that warrant thing, or are you gonna do that at the end?
Yes, actually, we should be realistic. Let's
we
be
do it
very
as we go?
specific. Here, I got so giddy about our discussion that I forgot this. Let's take this vote.
Okay.
We're gonna take this. Yeah, why don't you go out there for a second? I got giddy. We want to do this more real here.
I'm not done
Okay.
here.
All right. Yes. You know how to fill in that piece?
Well, this is gonna be amended now a little bit. So, all right, so wait, do I read the whole thing?
Oh, yeah, we should probably, so I gave you 2 examples there. That bottom one is a 1-year example.
Oh, okay.
So is the 1 year.
So that would be the one we use then?
But let's talk, this is our discussion part here. So 1.5. I would suggest we're gonna take, maybe half of that. Let's see, what do we have? We have, we could do the 1.5 out of unrestricted.
Yeah,
or
I'd say we
could-
do the whole thing under unrestricted.
Yeah, we can do it, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I would check.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think so,
That'd be
because we're gonna,
unrestricted.
if we do the others, we're gonna have to take more out anyway.
Yeah,
Unrestricted.
yeah, that
Okay.
complicates matters.
All right.
All right, very good.
So, okay, I make a motion, start with that.
Yeah.
To see if the town will vote to appropriate $1,500,000 from unrestricted project reserve to the town of Dartmouth for agricultural preservation fund administered by the Dartmouth Agricultural Commission pursuant to Mass General Law A, Chapter 40, Section 8L, subsection H, all in accordance with the terms and conditions of the Community Preservation Grant Agreement and referenced in the Community Preservation fiscal year 2027 budget. Or take any action relative
That
thereto.
is a beautiful motion. Okay. And a second on that motion. All right, Jim, any discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. She can come back now. And then I'm gonna, let's do a time check here.
Okay.
Okay.
My watch is stopped.
Late.
All right.
10 of 10, 8
Yeah, I'm
of 10.
tired.
8 of 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to, let's wrap at 10, and then we come back next Tuesday, the 17th, is what we have on our books.
All right, we put that on our books, yeah.
But we definitely have to have a quorum on the 17th.
Who's bringing the green beer?
Yeah.
I'll
Gotta
bring
have that
green
quorum.
brownies.
Would give me an excuse to
I
get,
will.
I have another event, but that'll give me an excuse to get out of it. so.
Okay. All right.
Margaret, I don't think he heard you. Say it again.
I'd like to go home,
You like to go home?
and I could be here for the 17th, but
I can be.
Okay.
I can be. So, I'd make a motion, we adjourn.
Oh, I have something.
Oh, you got,
Yeah.
So I noticed on the voucher, this should have been 150 and the total should have been 320. So I can wipe that out, initial it, and still submit it tomorrow. Is that okay?
Okay, and so what's the total?
320.
320. We do need them, let's get our motions correct here. This is on the invoice.
okay.
It should have been 320, not 340. So I've got a motion,
make a motion, we rescind the previous motion, and, what's the new numbers? We approve the.
320,
320.
320.
second.
All right, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Back to the
Make a
original
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, Christina, all in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.